American Comics, create the Man in Black, start interviewing the three-body problem author, Weiss. Chapter 176, The Fish is Hooked. Without hundreds of years, Asgard has no way to recover its vitality. It is enough to prove how important Asgard's rear is. The map also shows that the left and right sides of Asgard are places where there are relatively few troops stationed. When Malekith saw these two places, his mind became active. He was thinking that if the Dark Elves invaded this area, it would definitely reduce the huge casualties. However, he clearly knew that Lorf would not give up these two good places so easily. Now, he reckoned, Lorf was thinking about how he could hold his feet and let the giants of Jotunheim attack the left and right sides of Asgard. Obviously, Malekith guessed right. Lorf looked at the left and right sides of Asgard with fiery eyes, and couldn't help but smile coldly in his heart. Without the source of energy, the box of ancient winter, I propose to Kinyan that it should be possible for me to attack the left and right sides of Asgard. As long as this is the case, the casualties of the giants of Jotunheim will be greatly reduced. Let the Dark Elves take the place of the dead ghosts. My people of the giants of Jotunheim are all elite fighters, and no one can be lost. Lorf murmured in his heart, in terms of fighting, he still has some skills. We must find a way to do it, and the initiative must be in our own hands. A gleam flashed in Lorf's eyes. He coughed twice, and spoke slowly. Kinyan, what's your opinion? You know the information on the map best. I see that there are many comments from you on it. I think you should have some ideas. I wonder if I can explain one or two things. Lorf stared at Kinyan, wanting Kinyan to speak out. Kinyan smiled slightly, knowing that Lorf was hooked. From Lorf's expression, words and deeds, it can be seen that Lorf's mind is quite active now. As long as he gives him a little favor, Lorf will be hooked immediately, and it's the kind that he can't get rid of. Then I'll tell you about exclamation mark. Kinyan took out a chair, sat on it boldly, and pointed to the map on the table. The above description of Asgard has been very detailed. I have some ideas about it. Look, Bifrost, the palace, and the rear. These three places have the most soldiers, and the soldiers in the palace are the most elite soldiers. It's not realistic to take the palace under the sword at the beginning. Kinyan spoke slowly. Malekith and Lorf also nodded. They understood clearly. To be able to become a guard in the palace of Asgard, the guards are definitely not that weak. They must have some skills, and their combat power is much stronger than ordinary soldiers. In addition, there are the father of God Odin and Thor in the palace of Asgard. They are not idle people. One can imagine how difficult it is to gnaw away the hard bone of the palace. If we start from the left and right, we will split into two groups, all the way towards the rear of Asgard, and one side towards Bifrost. As long as Bifrost is destroyed, those Asgardians want to escape, and there is nowhere to run. And once the resources of Asgard's rear are destroyed, it will also deal a heavy blow to Asgard. Kinyan continued talking. Lorf and Malekith both nodded. But what Kinyan said was not what Lorf thought. Lorf wants to send people to enter from the left and right, and leave those few hard bones for Malekith's Dark Elves to chew on. Then he can still take a lot of benefits. No, I don't think so. I think it's a bit rash. As soon as Lorf said this, Kinyan, Malekith and others all looked up at him. Is this a bit rash? Malekith couldn't help feeling angry. Didn't he know Lorf's little thoughts? Malekith sneered in his heart, muttering in his heart. Damn, this Lorf is really shameless. What he thinks is really beautiful. It's ridiculous to dare to make such a request without looking at how many catties I have. Malekith scolded Lorf in his heart, but he still showed a puzzled expression on the surface, and he looked at Lorf. What do you mean, Lorf? How do you think it will work? Malekith asked Lorf the question in reverse. Since Lorf felt that what Kinyan proposed was a bit trash, then he must have a good idea of his own, right? Otherwise, he would still say that. It's a bit ridiculous. Kinyan also looked at Lorf. Lorf smiled lightly, then patted his chest and said, I think that one side can enter from the left and right sides of Asgard, so as to break the deadlock with a devastating force. At the same time, the other party quickly destroyed Bifrost, and then made a detour towards the rear of Asgard. Afterwards, this party and the other party gathered in the rear of Asgard, and finally attacked the palace of Asgard with lightning speed. Give them a fatal blow. After all, Lorf showed a satisfied smile. This is what he thought. He thought his plan was very good. It's just that he wants to get a little bit of money out of it. Definitely this is just his acknowledgement. As everyone knows, Malekith has already understood Lorf's thoughts, and Seemazazi's thoughts of Lorf are known to everyone. Who could fail to see Lorf's little thoughts? But even if he could see it, Lorf didn't care. After all, this matter was already regarded as a conspiracy. In his opinion, whether Kinyan agrees with him or not, he has to give him an explanation, and we can discuss it later. After all, cooperation is not one-sided, but to reconcile multiple aspects. Naturally some people are satisfied and some are not. Then who do you think is attacking the left and right of Asgard? Hello, us Dark Elves, or you giants of Jotunheim? Malekith looked at Lorf with a cold smile. Seeing Lorf's beating nature, Malekith wished he could go up and clean up Lorf now, and let him taste the power of the Dark Elves. Do you really think the Dark Elves are fools? Such an idea is too ridiculous. Who else could it be? Definitely the mighty giants of Jotunheim. As long as we appear, It will be an extremely terrifying existence for Asgard. Moreover, our offensive is more violent than yours. We have attacked the left and right sides, and at the same time, we can attract the attention of soldiers stationed in other places. At that time, haven't you created favorable conditions for your Dark Elves? Malekith, don't be ignorant. I have my own intentions in thinking this way, Lorf said with a smile, but anyone could see the shrewdness in his eyes. Chapter 177 Go all out. Haha, you are really ugly, but you want to be beautiful, and you still want to deceive me with this little trick of yours? Lorf, don't you just want to make the giants of Jotunheim sacrifice less and let us Dark Elves sacrifice more? Is it possible that I can't see your thoughts like this? It's too small to look down on people. Boom. Malekith slapped him on the table, glaring at Lorf viciously. He wished he could kill Lorf right here. If it weren't for Lorf still holding the military power of the giants of Jotunheim, Lorf would die 10,000 times now. It would be hard to relieve the hatred in Malekith's heart. Lorf's expression of not caring about you, he just thinks like this. People don't want to kill themselves, not to mention there are thousands of giants of Jotunheim standing behind him. Those are my own people, my heart and soul. War is inevitable, but who would think that half of their own people and soldiers will be killed or injured during the war? Lorf is not happy to see that scene. Are you not happy? Then you have nothing to do. I'm talking to Qin Yun. Lorf looked at Qin Yun. He didn't want to argue with Malekith anymore. For someone like Malekith, he had to use strength to crush him. Today's Lorf doesn't know that Qin Yun and Malekith are wearing a pair of pants. You want to attack the rear, right? Qin Yun squinted his eyes 557 and looked at Lorf. Malekith looked at Qin Yun's eyes, secretly happy in his heart. Get rid of this villain Lorf. Let him know how good you are. Don't think that being the leader of the giants of Jotunheim can do whatever you want. Malekith murmured in his heart that he still trusted Qin Yun's methods, and he was stronger than Lorf. But in front of Qin Yun, it's still not enough to watch, and in front of Qin Yun's absolute strength, Lorf's is simply not enough to watch. He only hoped that Qin Yun could teach Lorf a lesson and let him know that the sky is high and the earth is strong. People like Lorf with a simple mind and well-developed limbs can only be oppressed by force. And there is no other calendar. Malekith let out a long sigh. He already had his own thoughts in his heart. He clearly knew that Lorf must be on the left and right sides of Asgard. Okay, you want to attack the left and right sides of Asgard. I definitely agree. It's just that you have to do it. No matter how many giants of Jotunheim people die, you have to capture the left and right sides of Asgard. There must be no mistakes. If, CBBT, you can make this promise, I'll agree. After finishing speaking, Qin Yun looked at Malekith again, and he smiled slightly at Malekith. I believe that Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves, also agrees with this decision. Malekith was shocked by Qin Yun's performance for a moment, and he shouted in his heart. No, I don't agree. Isn't this making me the Dark Elves as cannon fodder? After this war is over, how many people from our Dark Elves can die? I absolutely disagree. Rather than doing this, it's better for our Dark Elves to take the initiative. The result is better than this. Malekith looked at Qin Yun, but with a look from Qin Yun, Malekith understood that he was extremely shrewd. While Qin Yun smiled at himself, he also gave himself a look. This look can only be understood but cannot be expressed in words. Malekith took a deep breath, nodded and said, since Qin Yun has agreed, and Lorf, you also have the same idea, then you can do it. However, I hope you giants of Jotunheim will help us when we take the left and right sides of Asgard. We are allies at the very least. If our Dark Elves suffer losses, it will not benefit you giants of Jotunheim. Malekith glanced at Lorf meaningfully, and both of them clearly knew the twists and turns in their hearts. If it weren't for Malekith being Qin Yun's subordinate now, he would never back down 100%. This kind of thing is completely pushing the Dark Elves into the fire pit. Malekith could only hope that Qin Yun had other methods to greatly reduce the casualties of the Dark Elves. Otherwise, after this battle, the Dark Elves will definitely have very little strength left. Malekith sighed helplessly, and the smile on Lorf's face grew wider. Haha, Qin Yun is still wise. Knowing who is stronger, the Dark Elves are not worth mentioning. Lorf laughed and said. Malekith was about to get angry when he was stopped by Qin Yun, who slowly shook his head. Don't fight among yourself. The big war is coming. If you fight among yourself now, it won't do anyone any good. Lorf, don't be too happy too soon. If the giants of Jotunheim can't show their due strength after the fall, I still have that certainty. Qin Yun said coldly, his body exuded a murderous intent. Lorf squinted his eyes and glanced at Qin Yun. In the depths of his heart, there was a trace of fear. He never thought that a human being on Earth could put such a great pressure on himself. He really wanted to know how Qin Yun, as a human being on Earth, got to this point. If all human beings on Earth have such great potential, he really can't imagine what the Earth will be like in the future. Lorf let out a long sigh of relief, and he nodded deeply. I understand. The two of you put your heart in your stomach. I can absolutely guarantee that the giants of Jotunheim will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. Lorf patted his chest to assure him that, as the leader of the giants of Jotunheim, he has great confidence in his people and soldiers. If the real giants of Jotunheim can't do this, even if I risk my life, I will prove that your choice is not wrong. Lorf said earnestly, He has 100% trust in his people. In addition to not being able to use magic, the giants of Jotunheim's physical strength has reached a terrifying existence. They are God's greatest gift. Physical strength is strong, it has the power to destroy everything, and its defense is frighteningly high. Ordinary weapons can't do anything to them at all. It was because of this body that he successfully stabbed the father of God Odin's right eye blind. The father of God Odin was also afraid of his body, and he didn't kill all the giants of Jotunheim after the victory. Because if the giants of Jotunheim are to be wiped out, the giants of Jotunheim will resist, and the price will be too heavy at that time. If there is a killing intent, the giants of Jotunheim will explode in an instant, and their combat power will be a little higher than usual. With the giants of Jotunheim cornered, will they let Asgard go so easily? Chapter 176. The fish is hooked. Without hundreds of years, Asgard has no way to recover its vitality. It is enough to prove how important Asgard's rear is. The map also shows that the left and right sides of Asgard are places where there are relatively few troops stationed. When Malekith saw these two places, his mind became active. He was thinking that if the Dark Elves invaded this area, it would definitely reduce the huge casualties. However, he clearly knew that Lorf would not give up these two good places so easily. Now, he reckoned, Lorf was thinking about how he could hold his feet and let the giants of Jotunheim attack the left and right sides of Asgard. Obviously, Malekith guessed right. Lorf looked at the left and right sides of Asgard with fiery eyes, and couldn't help but smile coldly in his heart. Without the source of energy, the box of ancient winter, I propose to Kinyan that it should be possible for me to attack the left and right sides of Asgard. As long as this is the case, the casualties of the giants of Jotunheim will be greatly reduced, and let the Dark Elves elder be the dead ghosts. The people of the giants of Jotunheim, are all elite fighters, and no one can be lost. Lorf murmured in his heart, in terms of fighting, he still has some skills. We must find a way to do it, and the initiative must be in our own hands. A gleam flashed in Lorf's eyes. He coughed twice, and spoke slowly. Kinyan, what's your opinion? You know the information on the map best. I see that there are many comments from you on it. I think you should have some ideas. I wonder if I can explain one or two things. Lorf stared at Kinyan, wanting Kinyan to speak out. Kinyan smiled slightly, knowing that Lorf was hooked. From Lorf's expression, words and deeds, it can be seen that Lorf's mind is quite active now. As long as he gives him a little favor, Lorf will be hooked immediately, and it's the kind that he can't get rid of. Then I'll tell you about it. Kinyan took out a chair, sat on it boldly, and pointed to the map on the table. The above description of Asgard has been very detailed. I have some ideas about it. Look, Bifrost, the palace, and the rear. These three places have the most soldiers, and the soldiers in the palace are the most elite soldiers. It's not realistic to take the palace under the sword at the beginning. Kinyan spoke slowly. Malekith and Lorf also nodded. They understood clearly. To be able to become a guard in the palace of Asgard, the guards are definitely not that weak. They must have some skills, and their combat power is much stronger than ordinary soldiers. In addition, there are the father of God Odin and Thor in the palace of Asgard. They are not idle people. One can imagine how difficult it is to gnaw away the hard bone of the palace. If we start from the left and right, we will split into two groups, all the way towards the rear of Asgard, and one side towards Bifrost. As long as Bifrost is destroyed, those Asgardians want to escape, and there is nowhere to run. And once the resources of Asgard's rear are destroyed, it will also deal a heavy blow to Asgard. Kinyan continued talking. Lorf and Malekith both nodded. But what Kinyan said was not what Lorf thought. Lorf wants to send people to enter from the left and right, and leave those few hard bones for Malekith's Dark Elves to chew on. Then he can still take a lot of benefits. No, I don't think so. I think it's a bit rash. As soon as Lorf said this, Kinyan, Malekith and others all looked up at him. Is this a bit rash? Malekith couldn't help feeling angry. Didn't he know Lorf's little thoughts? Malekith sneered in his heart, muttering in his heart. Damn, this Lorf is really shameless. What he thinks is really beautiful. It's ridiculous to dare to make such a request without looking at how many catties I have. Malekith scolded Lorf in his heart, but he still showed a puzzled expression on the surface, and he looked at Lorf. What do you mean, Lorf? How do you think it will work? Malekith asked Lorf the question in reverse. Since Lorf felt that what Kinyan proposed was a bit trash, then he must have a good idea of his own, right? Otherwise, he would still say that it's a bit ridiculous. Asking for flowers. Kinyan also looked at Lorf. Lorf smiled lightly, then patted his chest and said, I think that one side can enter from the left and right sides of Asgard, so as to break the deadlock with a devastating force. At the same time, the other party quickly destroyed Bifrost, and then made a detour towards the rear of Asgard. Afterwards, this party and the other party gathered in the rear of Asgard, and finally attacked the palace of Asgard with lightning speed. Give them a fatal blow. After all, Lorf showed a satisfied smile. This is what he thought. He thought his plan was very good. It's just that he wants to take advantage of it. Definitely this is just his opinion. As everyone knows, Malekith has already understood Lorf's thoughts, and Simazaz's thoughts of Lorf are known to everyone. Who could fail to see Lorf's little thoughts? But even if he could see it, Lorf didn't care. After all, This matter was already regarded as a conspiracy. 3. If Qin Yan agrees with his idea, he has to give him an explanation, and we can discuss it later. After all, cooperation is not one-sided, but to reconcile multiple aspects. Naturally some people are satisfied and some are not. And who do you think is attacking the left and right of Asgard? We Dark Elves, or you giants of Jotunheim? Malekith looked at Lorf with a cold smile. Seeing Lorf's beating nature, Malekith wished he could go up and clean up Lorf now, and let him taste the power of the Dark Elves. Do you really think the Dark Elves are fools? Such an idea is too ridiculous. Who else could it be? Definitely the mighty giants of Jotunheim. As long as we appear, it will be an extremely terrifying existence for Asgard. Moreover, our offensive is more violent than yours. We have attacked the left and right sides, and at the same time, we can attract the attention of soldiers stationed in other places. At that time, haven't you created favorable conditions for your Dark Elves? Malekith, don't be ignorant. I have my own intentions in thinking this way, Lorf said with a smile, but anyone could see the shrewdness in his eyes. Chapter 177 Go all out. Haha, you are really ugly, but you want to be beautiful, and you still want to deceive me with this little trick of yours? Lorf, don't you just want to make the giants of Jotunheim sacrifice less and let us Dark Elves sacrifice more? Is it possible that I can't see your thoughts like this? It's too small to look down on people. Boom. Malekith slapped him on the table, glaring at Lorf viciously. He wished he could kill Lorf right here. If it weren't for Lorf still holding the military power of the giants of Jotunheim, Lorf would die 10,000 times now. It would be hard to relieve the hatred in Malekith's heart. Lorf's expression of not caring about you, he just thinks like this. People don't want to kill themselves, not to mention there are thousands of giants of Jotunheim standing behind him. Those are my own people, my heart and soul. War 240 is unavoidable, but who would think that during the war, most of their own people and soldiers will be killed or injured? Lorf is not happy to see that scene. Are you not happy? Then you have nothing to do. I'm talking to Qin Yan. Lorf looked at Qin Yan. He didn't want to argue with Malekith anymore. For someone like Malekith, he had to use strength to crush him. Today's Lorf doesn't know that Qin Yan and Malekith are wearing a pair of pants. You want to attack the rear, right? Qin Yan squinted his eyes and looked at Lorf. Malekith looked at Qin Yan's eyes, secretly happy in his heart. Get rid of this villain, Lorf, and let him know how good you are. Don't think that being the leader of the giants of Jotunheim can do whatever you want. Malekith murmured in his heart that he still trusted Qin Yan's methods, and he was stronger than Lorf. But in front of Qin Yan, it's still not enough to watch, and in front of Qin Yan's absolute strength, Lorf's is simply not enough to watch. He only hoped that Qin Yan could teach Lorf a lesson and let him know that the sky is high and the earth is strong. People like Lorf with a simple mind and well-developed limbs can only be oppressed by force. And there is no other calendar. Malekith let out a long sigh. He already had his own thoughts in his heart. He clearly knew that Lorf must be on the left and right sides of Asgard. Okay, you want to attack the left and right sides of Asgard. I definitely agree. It's just that you have to do it. No matter how many giants of Jotunheim people die, you have to capture the left and right sides of Asgard. There must be no mistakes. If you can make this promise, I agree. After finishing speaking, Qin Yan looked at Malekith again, and he smiled slightly at Malekith. I believe that Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves, also agrees with this decision. Malekith was shocked by Qin Yan's performance for a moment, and he shouted in his heart. No, 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 I don't agree. Isn't this making me the Dark Elves as cannon fodder? After this war is over, how many people from our Dark Elves can die? I absolutely disagree. Rather than doing this, it's better for our Dark Elves to take the initiative. The result is better than this. Malekith looked at Qin Yan, but with a look from Qin Yan, Malekith understood that he was extremely shrewd. While Qin Yan smiled at himself, he also gave himself a look. This look can only be understood but cannot be expressed in words. Malekith took a deep breath, nodded and said, since Qin Yan has agreed, and Lorf, you also have the same idea, then you can do it. However, I hope you giants of Jotunheim will help us when we take the left and right sides of Asgard. We are allies at the very least. If our Dark Elves suffer losses, it will not benefit you giants of Jotunheim. Malekith glanced at Lorf meaningfully, and both of them clearly knew the twists and turns in their hearts. If it weren't for Malekith being Qin Yan's subordinate now, he would never back down 100%. This kind of thing is completely pushing the Dark Elves into the fire pit. Malekith could only hope that Qin Yan had other methods to greatly reduce the casualties of the Dark Elves. Otherwise, after this battle, the Dark Elves will definitely have very little strength left. Malekith sighed helplessly, and the smile on Lorf's face grew wider. Haha, Qin Yan is still wise. Knowing who is stronger, the Dark Elves are not worth mentioning. Lorf laughed and said. Malekith was about to get angry when Qin Yan stopped him. Qin Yan shook his head slowly. Don't fight among yourself. The big war is coming. If you fight among yourself now, it won't do anyone any good. Lorf, don't be too happy too soon. If the giants of Jotunheim can't show their due strength after the fall, I still have that certainty. Qin Yan said coldly. His body exuded a murderous intent. Lorf squinted his eyes and glanced at Qin Yan. In the depths of his heart, there was a trace of fear. He never thought that a human being on Earth could put such a great pressure on himself. He really wanted to know how Qin Yan, as a human being on Earth, got to this point. If all human beings on Earth have such great potential, he really can't imagine what the Earth will be like in the future. Lorf let out a long sigh of relief, and he nodded deeply. I understand. The two of you put your heart in your stomach. I can absolutely guarantee that the giants of Jotunheim will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. Lorf patted his chest to assure him that, as the leader of the giants of Jotunheim, he has great confidence in his people and soldiers. If the real giants of Jotunheim can't do this, even if I risk my life, I will prove that your choice is not wrong. Lorf said earnestly. He has 3.4% trust in his people. In addition to not being able to use magic, the giants of Jotunheim's physical strength has reached a terrifying existence. They are God's greatest gift. Physical strength is strong, it has the power to destroy everything, and its defense is frighteningly high. Ordinary weapons can't do anything to them at all. It was because of this body that he successfully stabbed the father of God Odin's right eye blind. The father of God Odin was also afraid of his body, and he didn't kill all the giants of Jotunheim after the victory. Because if the giants of Jotunheim are to be wiped out, the giants of Jotunheim will resist, and the price will be too heavy at that time. If there is a killing intent, the giants of Jotunheim will explode in an instant, and their combat power will be a little higher than usual. With the giants of Jotunheim cornered, will they let Asgard go so easily? Chapter 178, Successful Cooperation. Obviously not. The father of God Odin is well aware of this truth, that's why he just suppressed and didn't choose to kill them all. The people of Asgard and the giants of Jotunheim knows this truth clearly, but they don't say it clearly. When war is waged against Asgard again, Lorf promises that all the people of the giants of Jotunheim will break out, and there will be no force left. Because if you fail this time, you will be benevolent. If they are unsuccessful, the father of God Odin will definitely kill them all, and there will be absolutely no room for negotiation. Because to indulge the giants of Jotunheim again is tantamount to breeding tigers, the father of God Odin agreed in time, and no one in Asgard would stand up and agree. Therefore, this war to invade Asgard is a last stand for the giants of Jotunheim. Loki didn't expect that Qin Yan would agree to it. He always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what was wrong for a while. Loki sighed helplessly in his heart. In his opinion, Qin Yan would never suffer by himself. How can it be possible to suffer in these 21 aspects? And Malekith is also a bit uncharacteristically, logically speaking. What Malekith has to face is Asgard's tough bones. Why did he sadly agree after Lorf chose? A cloud of fog emerged in Loki's mind. He didn't know what to think for a while, and always felt that he was caught in a twists and turns. The exit of the mist cannot be seen from front to back, and has been deeply trapped in it. Damn it, what am I thinking? This matter is good for Effie. The giants of Jotunheim are my people in the future. They don't need to sacrifice too much. When I take power in the future, I will still have most of my power. TSK. And Qin Yan also said that he would help me become the new king of Asgard. Even if Qin Yan refuses to agree in the end, I have the giants of Jotunheim clan behind me. At that time, if Qin Yan agrees, he will agree, and if he disagrees, there will be nothing he can do. After Loki had thought through all these things in his heart, he was even more happy in his heart. He doesn't need to fight a single soldier, and he doesn't need to exert too much force. At that time, the new king of Asgard will be him, and Lorf will be very satisfied with this. After all, he is Lorf's biological son. The battle plan is actually very simple. We just need to do it with lightning speed, and don't need to think about other things. Qin Yan comforted Malekith with a voice. All he said was to reassure Malekith, and he will do all the rest. I hope so. I just don't want the people of the Dark Elves to die in vain. Lorf, I hope you can do what you say. If you can't attack the left and right sides of Asgard, even if I don't fight Asgard and let the Dark Elves die, I still have to drag you into the water. You can try it. Malekith glared at Lorf, and said angrily, he really dares to do this thing. As long as he thinks, there is nothing he dare not. If it really comes to that point, the giants of Jotunheim led by Lorf will not only have to face the army of Asgard, but also face the Dark Elves led by Malekith. At that time, that kind of situation will become a lose-lose situation, and there will be no room for negotiation. It's just that neither Malekith nor Lorf wanted to see that scene. Lorf said with a deep breath, Malekith, don't worry, I will never do such a thing. Our purpose is to overthrow Asgard and snatch resources and territory from the Asgardians. I don't want to start a useless war. At the same time, I don't really hope that I will turn against you. After all, we are all people who have failed in the hands of the father of God Odin. Lorf fixed his eyes on Malekith, and Malekith was quite satisfied listening to Lorf's words. Now that Lorf had already stated his position in this way, Malekith had no choice but to say more, and turned to look at Qin Yan. Just think about yourself and leave the rest to us. Let Qin Yan face the father of God Odin. Malekith really felt a lot of pressure, but seeing Qin Yan's swearing look, he was more or less relieved. But he still couldn't help telling him that if Qin Yan was killed by the father of God Odin, he would kill all those who signed contracts with him. That is really the end. Nothing has been done, and there is no escape from death in the end. Okay, Since neither Malekith nor Lorf have any comments, I'm going to emphasize it. Malekith, you lead the Dark Elves to Bifrost in Asgard and then detour to the rear of Asgard to invade resources. Lorf, you lead the giants of Jotunheim to the left and right of Asgard. Make sure there are no problems. Then go to help Malekith, and finally launch a final offensive against the palace of Asgard. Kinyan said seriously. Malekith and Lorf nodded in unison, and even Loki who was present could feel that the atmosphere was not right. Tomorrow is when the war will break out. Loki feels his blood boils just thinking about it. He has never experienced such a feeling. He felt that what he had done before was just a small fight, but now that he was facing such a situation, it was time to start a serious battle. Loki is 977 times excited. He wants to prove himself. Even in the war, he can still play a key role. It's just that Loki doesn't know if he can do this, but he promises that he will go all out and will not leave any spare power. As for other matters, he has to consider carefully, especially the possibility that the father of God Odin's life, as well as Thor's life, will end in his own hands tomorrow. For so many years, Loki has dreamed of something. He has been looking forward to it for countless years, and finally he can vent himself. Understood. You put your heart in your belly. As long as you can restrain Odin, leave everything else to me. Right? Malekith, you shouldn't hold back when the time comes, right? HMPH. Slow down. Are you talking about me? You should think about your own giants of Jotunheim clan first. If you give me trouble, I will kill you. Malekith snorted coldly, and replied with the slightest disdain. He looked down on Lorfatul from the bottom of his heart. Now, if Kinyan wasn't here, Malekith really wanted to fight Lorf for 300 rounds, so that Lorf would know how powerful he is. In today's conversation, everyone got a satisfactory answer, especially Lorf, who is now smiling from ear to ear. Chapter 179. Guess how good it is to attack the left and right sides of Asgard. It can greatly reduce the casualties of the giants of Jotunheim clan, Malekith also thought. But Kinyan stopped it. Tomorrow is the once in 5,000-year gathering of celestial bodies, and we must firmly seize this opportunity. Kinyan said slowly. The pupils of Loki and Lorf shrank slightly. They were both very surprised. It would be understandable for Malekith if he knew about the celestial bodies that gather once every 5,000 years. However, Kinyan, a human being on Earth, how did he know that the celestial bodies in Juzla gather once every 5,000 years? This is really a bit unrealistic. Such words can be said from Kinyan's mouth. Loki and Lorf looked at each other, and each other's faces became more serious. Kinyan, how do you know that tomorrow is a celestial body gathering that occurs once every 5,000 years? Lorf asked curiously. He knew that a celestial body reunion once every 5,000 years was just around the corner, but he couldn't guess which day it was. Kinyan can be accurate to which day, although it is said that the aggregation of celestial bodies occurs once every 5,000 years, but there are still many factors in 5,000 years, which will more or less cause the time for the aggregation of celestial bodies to be delayed. Therefore, very few people can accurately calculate the time of celestial body aggregation. It often happens that the celestial convergence has already begun to occur, and they only find out that the celestial convergence is happening. It's just an ordinary celestial body aggregation. Nothing they think is indifferent at all. It's just a celestial body aggregation once every 5,000 years. Malekith made a move, and Malekith led the Dark Elves to choose to invade Asgard, but failed. Instead, let the father of God Odin drive Malekith and the Dark Elves out, wandering in the universe, without any place at all, not even a place to live, no place to stay. Thinking about it, the days in the past 5,000 years were also very bad. When Malekith faced failure, the Dark Elves were seriously injured, and they also sought a lot of help. I hope that other countries in Kyushu can lend a helping hand and overthrow Asgard together. However, the father of God Odin was too powerful back then, and the people he led in Asgard became stronger and stronger one by one. How could an ordinary country dare to make a mistake in front of the father of God Odin? All of them are disheveled with their tails between their legs, hoping that the father of God Odin can let him go a little bit, and not use force to deal with their people and soldiers, and plunder their resources. The father of God Odin seeks a peace in Kyushu. Years of fighting made him feel exhausted. Only peace can win together. Unilateral plunder and war will eventually lead to a loss for both sides. For the request of the father of God Odin, other Kyushu countries agreed one after another. If they don't fight them or come to capture them, they are also willing to make peace. Then again, both Loki and Lorf looked at Kinyan, and even Loki felt that he was becoming less and less able to see through Kinyan, a human being on Earth, and he behaved like a god. It made people have no choice at all. Loki always felt that it was very possible for anything to happen to Kinyan, and what happened to Kinyan? Although, in the eyes of others, all this is very absurd, but Loki doesn't think so. That's right, Kinyan, how do you know the accurate time calculation of celestial body aggregation? Loki stared at Kinyan with wide eyes. He hoped that Kinyan could give him an answer. He really wanted to know how Kinyan did it. The celestial body reunion once every 5,000 years. There are too many things that can be done during the 5,000 years of reunion, although it is only a short day. But that day was the darkest and the most terrifying day. No one knew what would happen. Back then, the Dark Elves took advantage of this opportunity. Even if the Asgardians defeated them, it would still hurt Asgard's vitality. Because, in the darkness, it is not the field that the Asgards are good at, but the field that the Dark Elves are best at. They are like a dancer in the darkness. The weapon in his hand may emerge from the darkness at any time, and then kill him with one blow. There is no room for negotiation. If you don't make a move, you will be fine. If you make a move, it must be a living life, lost from their hands. The Dark Elves are really scary. Fortunately, they have been wandering in the universe for 5,000 years, and while the other Kyushu countries are still developing, the Dark Elves have been thinking about their own survival plans, and there is not much time to spend. Let's increase the strength of the Dark Elves. Kinyan looked at the anxious looks of Loki and Lorth. He smiled lightly and waved his hands. This matter is a mystery. It can only be understood but not explained in words, so please don't ask any more questions. For you, there is no benefit. You still think about what to do. Tomorrow is the gathering of celestial bodies once every 5,000 years. The time is definitely the most suitable time to make a move. By then, the victory will only be ours. The rule of Asgard should also be overthrown, and the people of Asgard should also learn the lesson. Kinyan spoke righteously. Loki, Lorth, and Malekith all that nodded solemnly. They were already dissatisfied with the rule of the father of God Odin. Now that the father of God Odin has reached his twilight years, most of the Asgardians have adapted to a peaceful environment. They have already lost their blood and will not move at the moment. When should we wait? Don't miss this opportunity. If you miss it, it will never come again. If you miss it, you will have to wait for the next 5,000 years. The celestial bodies gather once every 5,000 years. It is a rare opportunity to make up for it. I believe that if the Dark Elves and the Giants of Jotunheim are dispatched, other countries in Kyushu will also be ready to move. But this, Zhao, is unknown. The only thing that can be guaranteed now is the Giants of Jotunheim and the Dark Elf army, and the remaining Kinyan doesn't even think about it anymore. The overthrow of Asgard is tomorrow. Okay, that's the end of our conversation today. You can arrange the people below. For the rest, you must ensure that nothing goes wrong. Don't make any mistakes. We don't have so many opportunities. You should understand. I just hope you can do all of this. Other than that, you can do whatever you need. Especially Loki, you must not show your feet. You are the one thing I am most worried about. Kinyan said seriously. They all understood the seriousness of this matter. Loki patted his chest for assurance. Don't worry, I will never lose the chain, but I hope that the lives of the father of God Odin and Thor must be handed over to me. Chapter 180 Malekith's Perplexity. Loki showed a cruel expression while talking. He has waited too long for this day. He must prove to Odin that he is stronger than Thor. Okay, then we will start to act at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. The time for celestial bodies to gather will last for 24 hours, and from tonight onwards, it will be plunged into darkness. We want to numb them. 7 o'clock tomorrow night is the best time. After Kinyan announced the time arrangement, the others nodded their heads one after another. They were also very satisfied with the time arrangement. After all, if you act at night tonight, you will not have enough time. 7 o'clock tomorrow night is definitely the best time. After everything was arranged properly, the barrier slowly dissipated, and there were still Malekith and Loki in Kinyan's room. Loki, you can prepare with peace of mind. I still have something to say to Malekith. Kinyan ordered Loki to evict. Loki glanced at Kinyan and then at Malekith. He nodded and left the room without thinking too much and disappeared into the darkness. As soon as Loki left and Malekith opened his mouth to speak, Kinyan waved his hand. Then a light blue energy emerged from Kinyan's hands and surrounded the whole room. This is Kinyan's little hand. The purpose is to ensure that it will not be eavesdropped by others. It is essential to guard against others. You still have to be careful. What if the wall has ears? After watching Kinyan finish all this, Malekith spoke anxiously. Why? The conditions on the left and right of Asgard are so good. Why did they give up to the Giants of Jotunheim? Kinyan, if you hadn't nodded in agreement there, otherwise I really don't want to give up to Lorth so easily. A resentment arose in Malekith's heart. The left and right sides of Asgard were obviously sweet spots, and the soldiers who went there would greatly reduce casualties. Asgard's most important Bifrost and rare resources are left to Malekith, which makes Malekith feel that it is very unfair for the Dark Elves. In the enchantment before, Malekith didn't dare to say much. If he talked too much, he would be discovered by others instead. Seeing that Kinyan agreed, Malekith couldn't continue talking, so he could only ask Kinyan what he thought after the conversation was over. He is now Kinyan's subordinate, and the Dark Elves are naturally also Kinyan's subordinates. Doesn't Kinyan have any idea about the Dark Elves? Must the Dark Elves be used as cannon fodder? I knew you would say that. Come on, sit down first. If you encounter something, don't worry, it's useful for me to arrange it this way. As long as you listen to me, you will be able to clearly know what I think. Kinyan chuckled, showing a smug smile. He already had such an idea, and wanted the Giants of Jotunheim led by Lorth to go all out. I have to give a little favor and hang Lorth firmly, so that Lorth won't think that he is taking advantage of it from the beginning. As everyone knows, Kinyan dug a big hole for Lorth in the back, waiting for Lorf to jump into it with the giants of Jotunheim clan. Kinyan had already planned it out. Seeing Malekith's anxious look, Kinyan decided to let Malekith know something. Don't wait for that time. It will be troublesome if you lose the chain at the critical moment. Kinyan doesn't want Malekith to lose the big by being small. What do you think? Say it. Malekith sat down and asked Kinyan anxiously. He really wanted Kinyan to say something, otherwise he really didn't understand. Tell you, Lorf's choice of Asgard left and right is a trap. Did you really think I would hand it over to him so easily? I want the giants of Jotunheim led by Lorf to fail. Their deaths will definitely be many. After Kinyan finished speaking, Malekith glanced at Kinyan suspiciously. Anyone with a discerning eye knew, kbag, that there was a big vacancy on the left and right sides of Asgard, but when it came to Kinyan, there was no such thing. The left and right sides of Asgard have become traps. What is going on? He really couldn't figure it out clearly. Looking at Malekith's expression, Kinyan knew that Malekith didn't understand his intention. He laughed out loud and continued talking. I tell you, I'm going to find the father of God Odin tonight. What would I say to him? Malekith shook his head slowly. Who knows what Kinyan will say when he finds Odin? Maybe it means someone is going to invade Asgard tomorrow. I hope the father of God Odin will make a decision early and make a good plan. In Malekith's opinion, if he said this, Kinyan would definitely not be Kinyan anymore, but a big fool. However, what Kinyan said next surprised Malekith. I'll tell him someone is going to invade Asgard tomorrow. Kinyan smiled lightly, and Malekith stared at Kinyan in disbelief. He stood up excitedly and asked quickly. You are crazy. What would Odin think if he found out that we invaded Asgard tomorrow? What we have to do is to give Asgard a fatal blow at a critical moment. You suddenly explained in advance, so how should we respond? By then, Asgard will be wary, and it will be harder for us to attack. Malekith frowned and said. His expression was very serious. He felt that once he told the father of God Odin about this matter, it would be tantamount to notifying the plan in advance and directly announcing the cancellation. The father of God Odin is a shrewd man. He will figure out everything, and immediately dispatch troops. The Asgardians they will face will be even more troublesome. No, you don't understand. I just need to ask Odin to arrange the soldiers of Bifrost to the left and right of Asgard. By then, will it be easier for the Dark Elves you lead to attack? Will the giants of Jotunheim led by Lorf suffer even more casualties? Kinyan waved his hand and said indifferently. Malekith looked at Kinyan like this, and became more and more anxious in his heart. Kinyan is betting, and if he wins the bet, Malekith and the Dark Elves are happy together. If you lose the bet, it will be bad, and everyone will face extremely difficulties. Kinyan taking this step is tantamount to taking another risky move, and every step is like walking on thin ice. If there is a little carelessness, it will become irreversible. No one dares to be so bold. This approach is insane and Malekith does not recommend it. Chapter 181 Take Tie Particles. Kinyan, I sue you, you are too risky. You chose to fight the father of God Odin before. I think it is understandable. But, if you go out and say it like this now, will Odin believe it? Asgard's defense system will be upgraded to another level. By then, all of us will face a terrible situation. Malekith said very anxiously. If he hadn't signed a contract with Kinyan before, otherwise, Malekith really wanted Kinyan to look good. Malekith is talking to Kinyan nicely now, and the attitude he said is sincere. He only hoped that Kinyan could clearly consider the pros and cons. Once he told the father of God Odin about this, the harm would outweigh the benefit. A sneaky raid on Asgard would do more good than harm. Then where did you put the Dark Elves? You left the Dark Elves alone? Why do I agree with Lorf's idea? I will definitely tell the father of God Odin that you are my subordinate, and the Dark Elves are also part of my power. I let you keep your heart in your stomach. I will never let the Dark Elves suffer any loss. You just need to watch it. Leave the rest to me. There is absolutely no problem. Kinyan said seriously, and when Malekith heard it, he felt a sense of suffocation in his mind, and he didn't know what to do for a while. Do you support Kinyan, or do you not support Kinyan? He seemed to have no choice. Malekith sighed deeply. From the moment he appeared in front of Kinyan, he was on Kinyan's thief ship. No matter what, there is no way to escape. No way to escape. Just in response to that sentence, he is now Kinyan's person in life and Kinyan's ghost in death. Now that Kinyan had already said that, Malekith smiled helplessly, sat limply on the chair, and spoke weakly. You are gambling with the Dark Elves as chips. You are really unreasonable. Everyone is happy if they win the bet, but if they lose the bet, the Dark Elves will suffer countless casualties. Oh, I really don't know whether your choice is right or wrong. I really have no choice. In front of Kinyan, Malekith didn't have any right to choose. He could only agree. Apart from making suggestions, it also depended on Kinyan's acceptance or not. If Kinyan doesn't accept it, then even if Malekith's words are outrageous, it won't help at all. It won't be of any use. Malekith at the moment really has more than enough heart but not enough energy. Don't worry, everything is in my plan. Just look at it. I will definitely preserve the strength of the Dark Elves, and then you can just smile secretly. As for the giants of Jotunheim, they can be treated as cannon fodder. Kinyan said with a faint smile, before definitely talking to the father of God Odin. There is one more important thing to do. That is to take out the TIE particles from Jane's body, and by then, Malekith's strength will be greatly improved again. He still hopes that his soldiers are strong, and they are still under his command, no matter what. He can't suffer loss. He still felt the need to do such a thing. Malekith is strong. Let the TIE particles radiate the entire Dark Elves, and then the Dark Elves will be extremely powerful. Thinking of this, Kinyan laughed, and in Malekith's view, Kinyan's smile really made him puzzled, and he didn't know what to say. It doesn't matter whether you say it or not. It may not be right if you say it, but you must be right if you don't say it. We have one more important thing to do. What's the matter? Malekith looked at Kinyan curiously. Kinyan suddenly said that there was one more important matter. What could it be? Take TIE particles. Kinyan spoke slowly, and when Kinyan finished saying TIE particles, Malekith's eyes widened for a moment. I've been thinking about tomorrow's invasion of Asgard, but I didn't think about TIE particles at all. I completely forgot about TIE particles. Malekith patted his head hastily. Oops, such an important thing. I actually forgot before. Then let's get it quickly. As long as there are TIE particles, I will definitely make the Dark Elves perform well tomorrow. Malekith laughed and said, TIE particles are his most important thing. As long as he gets TIE particles, he can talk about anything. You can forget such an important thing? Asking for flowers. Kinyan really couldn't laugh or cry. Seeing Malekith's performance, Kinyan stood up slowly, and was about to walk outside. Malekith hurriedly followed, and Kinyan turned his head. Why are you following me? Go get the TIE particles. Why don't I go? Malekith widened his eyes and said, Definitely, wait here. Jijian suddenly saw an unknown person beside me. What do you think she would think? Everything is based on the overall situation, so don't think so much. Just wait here for me to get the TIE particles. Kinyan spoke slowly. Malekith nodded. Kinyan made sense. After all, Malekith is unknown to Jane. If he appears, it will inevitably startle the snake, in case Jane tells the father of God Odin all of a sudden. How should Malekith react? To be on the safe side, Malekith obediently listened to Kinyan's words, and stayed quietly in Kinyan's room alone. After Malekith walked out, he walked towards Jane's room, and just outside the door, he heard the sound of laughter inside. Kinyan pouted helplessly for a moment. There were other people in Jane's room, so who else could there be? It's definitely Thor. Boom boom boom. Kinyan knocked on the door slowly. The laughter inside stopped for a moment. Jane and Thor glanced at each other in the room. Thor frowned. Who will come to see you at night? How can I know? You go out and have a look. Jane smiled and poked Thor's chest with her hand. Thor looked at the delicate Jane, and the anger in his heart before disappeared without a trace. Haha, okay, baby, wait for me. After all, Thor kissed Jane lightly on the forehead. Thor got off the bed in a good mood, put on a casual dress, and covered most of his body. Who, in the middle of the night, if you let me tell you that you have nothing to do, come find someone. Be careful, I will beat you hard. Thor opened the door while talking, but when he saw the person outside the door, he was stunned for a moment. Chapter 182 means. He scratched his head hastily, and smiled awkwardly. Kinyan, why did you come to Jane at night? After he finished speaking, he yelled at Jane in the room. It's Kinyan. Don't worry. When Jane heard that it was Kinyan, she felt relieved for a while, and thought it was someone who had nothing to do at night to watch the excitement of the National People's Congress. What? It's not convenient to talk or what? How about we go out and talk? Don't block the door. Kinyan frowned and said. He looked at Thor standing at the door. He wouldn't let himself in, and he wouldn't come out by himself. In such a situation, if others see it, they will inevitably think too much. Thor nodded awkwardly, and he pointed into the room. I'm going to change clothes. You wait a moment. Kinyan nodded. Thor entered the room and smiled at Jane. September 47 inches, changed his clothes, and went out. Kinyan stood at the door and looked outside, looking at the sky full of stars. Kinyan didn't know how comfortable it was. When we were on Earth, there were not many stars in the sky, but in Asgard, which is as beautiful as the sky, the scenery is indeed very beautiful. At night, standing by the beach with the cool wind blowing is as pleasant as it could be. Unfortunately, only today, after tomorrow, Asgard will have a different situation. Kinyan sighed helplessly. This is inevitable. There is no way, nor is there any choice. He fights for himself and does it to complete the task. In fact, most of the time, Kinyan is an existence without emotion at all. He doesn't care about the life and death of others. Similarly, he doesn't care too much about other people's feelings. In his opinion, he is the most important thing. Only when he is better, then everything is fine. Thor came out of the room, looking at Kinyan's sad look. He didn't know what to say for a moment. This was the first time he saw such an expression from Kinyan. Thor smiled faintly, stretched out his hand and patted Kinyan's shoulder, and spoke. What's the matter? What are you thinking? Why do you feel sad? It's the first time I've seen such an expression on your body. To be honest, it's really hard for me to imagine. Thor told the truth. Kinyan shrugged indifferently and sighed. All I can say is that Asgard is so beautiful at night, you can't take your eyes off for a moment. The sky is so dark and so beautiful, no matter what happens today. The sun will rise again tomorrow. Qin Yan laughed while talking, and Thor also laughed. He didn't know what Qin Yan was laughing at. Then you can stay in Asgard for a while longer. During this time we Asgard still treat you well, right? Thor smiled and said, it is undeniable that recently, Asgard's hospitality to Qin Yan was indeed good. At least it made Qin Yan feel a feeling of being loved. This kind of feeling made him feel ridiculous and absurd, but Qin Yan didn't care much about it. Whether Asgard treats him well or badly, there will naturally be a reason for it. As for other aspects, Qin Yan didn't want to think about them at all. Tell me, what are you looking for Jane tonight? Is there something that can't be said tomorrow? Thor frowned slightly. Looking for Jane at night, especially for Qin Yan, must have something very important. Otherwise, Qin Yan would spend his time in the daytime. Thor clearly knows that Qin Yan is a very serious person, and he will never do something that makes people unhappy. Thor was puzzled and could only look at Qin Yan, waiting for Qin Yan to speak. Qin Yan pointed to the room and said, I sense that the energy in Jane's body has changed. My initial guess is that Jane has completely absorbed the energy in her body. What? Thor's eyes widened, and he looked at Qin Yan in disbelief. Jane's body energy has been completely absorbed by her? What does this mean? It means that Jane will soon be able to become a god, and have a long time like him. Could Thor not be excited? In the past few days, the relationship between Jane and him has been on the rise. Thor cares about this as much as he wants, and he has been counting the days in his heart. What Qin Yan said before was 3 to 5 days. Unexpectedly, just after the third day, Jane completely absorbed the energy in her body. This is great news for Thor. No wonder you came to Jane at night. It turned out to be this matter. Such an important matter, you can't talk about it outside. Please walk around inside. Let's have a good talk inside and see what's going on with Jane. Thor laughed and said to Qin Yan. Qin Yan just smiled and nodded. He pointed to the room. Is it convenient to go in now? Why don't you go in and have a look first? If it's convenient, I'll go in again. Qin Yan smiled lightly and teased Thor, who patted his forehead and laughed loudly. Okay, wait a moment, I forgot about this. If you hadn't reminded me, there would be a real possibility of misunderstanding. Qin Yan, wait a minute, I'll go in and take a look first. Thor hurriedly entered the door, saw Jane still lying there, and closed the door carefully. What did Qin Yan tell you? Why are you so excited? I heard your laughter just now. Jane frowned slightly. Thor's movement outside the house just now really shocked her. She didn't know what funny things Thor had at night. Even if they don't rest, someone else does. Wonderful news. Get up quickly. Qin Yan is still waiting outside the house. Get dressed quickly. 2.6 inches. Thor spoke in a hurry. Jane didn't react for a while, stretched out her hand to stroke her long hair, and asked in surprise. What great news. Why is Qin Yan coming into the house at night? Can't we talk about it tomorrow? Jane also wanted to take advantage of the night time to have a good time with Thor, and the relationship between them has been on the rise recently. The two of them are like dry firewood, wishing to stick together every moment of every day. That feeling, that kind of tenderness, makes Jane linger and forget to return. At the same time, it also allows Thor to truly experience that the hero is sad and beautiful, and he is not like a god in front of Jane. Instead, he stuck to Jane's body like a child, and only when he felt Jane's body temperature could he feel a little calmer. Chapter 183, Success. The energy in your body has been completely absorbed by you. Isn't it great news that you have become a god? The reason why Qin Yan came to us is because he sensed the energy changes in your body. Otherwise, it's not because of illness that Qin Yan came to see us at night, it's because of this important matter. Thor said anxiously, seeing Jane half sitting on the bed, not moving to get out of bed at all. It really made him a little anxious. On the one hand, Qin Yan is waiting outside the house, waiting to check the situation inside simplified. On the other hand, doesn't Jane herself care about her body? She is no longer an ordinary Earth human being, but an Earth human who is about to become a god. As soon as Jane heard this, she immediately jumped up from the bed. Her whole body was full of spring, and Thor couldn't help being stunned when he saw this scene. Jane looked at herself following Thor's eyes, her face flushed slightly, and she hurriedly got dressed. What are you looking at? Haven't seen beautiful women? It's all yours now. Is it still like this? Haha, no matter what, I can't watch it. Beauty, are you ready to become a god? The door to a new world is about to open to you. Thor 21 yelled excitedly, and Jane nodded. Thor opened the door and shouted to Qin Yan outside. Come in, come in. Qin Yan walked in slowly, looked at Jane's cozy hut, and couldn't help sighing. TSK, you guys will still enjoy it. Look at how well you have dressed up here. I really admire your elegance. Qin Yan said with a smile. Thor and Jane looked at each other. They saw happiness in each other's eyes. Come, Qin Yan, sit down. Thor hastily pulled out a chair from the side, and asked Qin Yan to sit down. Jane looked at Qin Yan excitedly, and pointed to herself. Have I absorbed all the energy in my body? Why can't I feel anything? What is happening? Jane asked Qin Yan curiously. Qin Yan nodded with a smile. According to the energy method I injected into your body, it is true that the energy in your body has been absorbed by you. You don't feel it because my power is protecting you. So, During this period of time, you didn't notice it at all. It's a really normal thing. Thor nodded at the side. He was still very clear about Qin Yun's methods. Don't underestimate that Qin Yun is just a human being on Earth. In fact, Qin Yun's means and strength surprised even a god of Asgard, and he thought many times, what would it be like if Qin Yun was an Asgardian instead of a human from Earth? In Thor's view, there is a world of difference between the physique of the Asgardians and that of the humans on Earth. Once an Asgard is born, he has the strength of an adult man on Earth, and as the years increase, the strength in the Asgard will always be on the rise. It's just that each Asgard's body's strength rise stage is different, and this comes from the ability of the Asgard's body. Compared with humans on Earth, Asgard people's physique is stronger than anyone knows how many times. Moreover, the father of God Odin had already told Thor before that even he couldn't see through Qin Yun. It is enough to prove how terrifying Qin Yun is. In terms of strength, he is absolutely worthy of the father of God. Is this something humans on Earth can do? It can be said that Qin Yun has created a miracle for the human beings on Earth. So that's the way it is. No wonder it's like this. However, I'm still a little tired recently. Maybe it's just energy absorbing, Jane said thoughtfully. She didn't actually feel much. There was a burst of energy in her body, but she felt very little. She is really hard to imagine, but she is also a shrewd person. Subconsciously thought that Qin Yun did it. Thank you so much, but what should I do next? Am I really going to become a god? Jane spoke excitedly, but she didn't feel that she had such powerful divine power as Thor. She was just like ordinary humans on Earth, without any difference. Don't worry, it's because the energy in my body has completely suppressed your problems. You just need to wait for a while, and wait for me to take back the energy that belongs to me in your body. At that point, you can experience it, Qin Yun said with a smile. Thor and Jane couldn't wait a long time ago. The two of them looked at each other. They didn't expect that the road to becoming a god was so close to Jane. It was just a step away, and Qin Yun, who played a key role, was right in front of them. So, day cuts are like a dream. Child, don't say much, just relax a little bit and let out my energy, Qin Yun said unhurriedly. He has already thought of a good method in his brain, which can definitely attract the father of God Odin. By then, the communication between him and the father of God Odin may be better. The plan, everything is developing step by step, without any changes. Everything is firmly in the palm of Qin Yun. Jian Fang nodded her head relaxedly. To be honest, she was still somewhat nervous in her heart, and she couldn't express that feeling. The road to becoming a god is just around the corner. As a human being on Earth, it is strange that she is not nervous if she can get to this point. Bring it on. Jane took a deep breath and spoke softly, while Thor beside him was also nervous and didn't know what to say. He held his breath and looked at the two people in front of him, and couldn't help feeling nervous for Jane in his heart. This was a feeling he hadn't experienced for many years. Qin Yun smiled lightly, waved his right hand lightly, and a light blue energy flew out from his palm, covering Jane's body. Qin Yun closed his eyes and felt the Ti particles in Jian's body. After Jane became the nourishment of Ti particles in the past few days, the Ti particles are now very active. It had long wanted to break out of Jane's body, but Qin Yun's energy kept suppressing it. When Ti particles felt Qin Yun's energy again, it wanted to break free, and didn't want to be firmly controlled by Qin Yun. Qin Yun smiled slightly. He clearly felt the fluctuation of Ti particles. How could he let Ti particles run out of his palm easily? Boom! All of Qin Yun's power was released, covering Jane's entire body, and the energy of Qin Yun and Jane's body was also released instantly. Ti particles wanted to break free, but felt that the cage outside simplified made it even more difficult to break free. Chapter 184, Becoming a God. It wants to try, but it doesn't have the courage. So, Ti particles quietly stayed in Jane's body, waiting for the right time. How did Qin Yun give Ti particles this chance? A light blue palm appeared, as if grabbing Ti particles by the throat, pulling it out of Jane's body. A reddish energy, mixed with black, flew from Jane's body to Qin Yun's body. Thor on the side was stunned, and then Qin Yun waved his hand lightly, injecting his energy zone into Jane's body. This energy is Qin Yun's ulterior motives. It can make Jane a god in a short period of time, but this energy has a time limit in Jane's body. That is 2 days. As long as the 2 days pass, Jane will become an ordinary person, and even die instantly. Because, Simplified has already been ruined by Ti particles. Today, Jane is not dead. It is because of Qin Yun's energy that has played a role. Qin Yun let out a long sigh of relief. After doing all this, he finally got a satisfactory answer. Ti particles arrived, and the supernatural power appeared in Jane's body, and everything was hidden from the sky, and no one discovered it. Even Thor looked at what happened in front of him and didn't notice anything wrong. It is enough to prove the brilliance of Qin Yun's methods. Boom! A bright light appeared on Jane's body, illuminating the pitch-black Asgard. This ray of light caused many people to fail to react. What happened? Over there is the palace of Asgard. What's going on? There is such a strong light at night. What's the situation? Damn it! Is there an enemy? Take a break. What's going on in Asgard? Don't you know? There are still ridiculous enemies. Many Asgard people were shocked, but no one knew what was going on. Don't be surprised. Everyone, don't be surprised, Hilda. A deep voice resounds throughout Asgard. It is the father of god Odin. The moment that light appeared, he sensed a powerful aura. In the next second, he appeared in Jane's room, and when he saw clearly what was going on, he immediately exerted his divine power to silence the whole of Asgard. He felt the light just now, which brought a little panic to the people of Asgard. At the moment, Malekith, who was hiding in the darkness in the distance, laughed sinisterly. Looks like Kinyan has got the TIE particles. It's just this kind of method, which really makes people a little surprised. As expected of the person I follow, this method is brilliant. Malekith was extremely excited. The TIE particles had already been in Kinyan's hands, which means he had already got the TIE particles. After so many years, he was finally able to get TIE particles again, which is a symbol of the rise of the Dark Elves. Haha, the father of god Odin, just wait a little longer, Asgard will change drastically after tomorrow. How did you humiliate me back then? I will get it back now. It's just that the price is heavier than imagined. Malekith whispered, while not being noticed by others. He laughed out loud, feeling as if the whole of Asgard belonged to him. In the next second, Malekith disappeared into the darkness again, coming and going without a trace, and no one noticed it at all. When the father of god Odin appeared, Frigga also came to Jane's room immediately. Thor saw that his father and mother were extremely excited. He didn't expect that Odin and Frigga noticed the movement. Then Jane's path to becoming a god is 9 out of 10. What just happened? The father of god Odin frowned and asked. He felt a powerful aura appearing from Jane, but he didn't know how to make a decision for a while. He who is well informed, encountered such a situation, and felt guilty for a while. Without understanding the ins and outs, he would not be able to define Jane. Even Frigga, who has always been steady, couldn't make up her mind for a while. Thor laughed excitedly, pointed at Jane, and laughed again. Jane has become a god. Jane has become a god. What? Became a god? Odin and Frigga said in unison. They looked Jane up and down, and indeed found that apart from Jane's powerful energy, she also seemed to have a bit of divine power. Became a god? Frigga asked excitedly. She stretched out her hand, and a warm light green energy emerged in her palm. The light green energy instantly covered Jane's body, and Jane only felt the unprecedented warmth in her body. I don't know. I just feel that my body is full of strength. It seems that this is the feeling of becoming a god. Jane shouted excitedly, and she couldn't help clenching her fists, only feeling the power in her body attacking her whole body like a tide. This feeling is really wonderful. Jane closed her eyes with an intoxicated look on her face. At the moment, the father of god Odin looked at Frigga, and saw that Frigga slowly withdrew the light green energy, then nodded with a smile. Jane, congratulations, you have indeed become a god. It's just that you just became a god, and your aura is so strong. We didn't expect it. Frigga is in a good mood, and Jane has become a god, which means that the road to happiness with Thor is about to begin. This is a double blessing. The father of god Odin, who never showed much emotion to anything, also laughed at this moment. Okay, it's good to be a god. There is no harm in being strong. Many people will be favored by the heavens at the moment before they become gods. Rumor, there is a power in the sky, and he will give gifts to everyone who has just become a god. It's just that the gifted power is also divided into file sizes, but it can be seen that, goodly how, the power in your body is the kind of gods who give more gifts. Jane, welcome to join our Protoss family. The father of god Odin said cheerfully, before he was worried about Jane's physical problems. In case something happened to Jane, he knew his son Thor best. There is something wrong with Jane, and Thor will definitely collapse. At the moment, everyone was in a very good mood, affirmed by the father of god Odin, as his son Thor. The reaction was the most intense. Getting the approval of his father Odin is not what everyone wants. How many people feel that Odin's words are like a notice from a god? Jane, you've been recognized. The father of God's approval, the king of Asgard's approval, Thor yelled excitedly, and Jane blushed, not knowing what to say for a while. From now on, her life will change drastically. Chapter 185, Crossing the Sea. It's just that all this is thanks to Kinyan. She looked at Kinyan who was standing behind them. Kinyan, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I'm just an ordinary human on Earth. How can I hope to become a god? Jane was talking to Kinyan, and everyone's eyes were on Kinyan. A person with an ordinary appearance can often do unexpected things. Help Jane become a god, but there are a few people to thank. Thank you so much. On behalf of Jane, you will always be my friend. Thor took a step forward and patted Kinyan's shoulder. Kinyan smiled faintly and shrugged indifferently. It's nothing, it was Jane's good luck. I just helped out a little bit. I didn't do anything else. Kinyan said lightly. But the more he has this attitude, the more the people in front of him will look up to him. Especially the father of god Odin. He was a little confused about Kinyan for a while. Kinyan, what else do you want from my treasury? Just ask, just mention, as long as you want, I can give it to you. The father of god Odin said boldly. He has never been as happy as today in many years. For Kinyan's help to Jane, he has nothing to do to thank him. He can only provide what is in his own treasure house. Besides, the father of god Odin felt that Kinyan should not be needed. Money, beauty, there is no attraction at all for people at their stage of strength. As long as they want, countless money will fall into their pockets, and countless beauties will smile wantonly in their arms. This is the representative of a person's strength. As long as he has enough strength, he can do whatever he wants. Officially corresponding to that sentence, you need to be strong to strike an iron. If you don't have that strength, no matter how much money you give to a beautiful woman, there is no way to keep it. Queen Frigg also nodded with a smile. She said with a smile, "Yes, Qin Yun, you have helped us so much. Don't be polite. We know how hard it is to help someone become a god." The Queen, Frigga, clearly understands that it is impossible to rely on Jane to absorb the powerful energy in her body. Of course, there must be the help of Qin Yun. Otherwise, Jane would not become a god so easily. Qin Yun laughed in his heart. He, Kpfi, looked at the sincere eyes in front of him. They didn't expect it at all. It's all Qin Yun's doing. Jane didn't become a god. She was just a false god. That's all. Jane doesn't have the ability of God at all. It's just that everything is Qin Yun's method. It's that simple. The divine power in Jane's body can only be used for 2 days. The others didn't even notice, which made Qin Yun look down on the father of God Odin and the Queen Frigga. These two are the first-class powerhouses in Asgard. Even the two of them can't tell. Qin Yun understands how clever his methods are. As far as their current strength is concerned, they can still use this method many times. Thinking of this, Qin Yun had a smile on his face. He looked at the few people in front of him and shook his head slowly. Everyone is grateful to me. I have already felt it. It's just that all this boils down to Jane's opportunity. I'm just doing a little work, and I'm just doing a small favor, so it's nothing to worry about. Since you all treat me like this, don't be so polite to me. Thor shook his head. He waved his hands quickly and said, "No, no, if this is the case, after people find out, say we Asgard are stingy." Qin Yun, just ask. As long as you ask, we can help. I will definitely help, and I will definitely give you what I can give you. What Thor said was approved by the father of God Odin and Queen Frigg. They are not stingy people. Since Qin Yun did such a big favor, they thought that no matter what, they must meet Qin Yun's conditions. If Asgard has something, give it to Qin Yun. If Asgard doesn't have something, find a way to give it to Qin Yun. They are not the kind of people who are reluctant about this matter. Oh, you made me feel so embarrassed. Let's put this matter aside for now. As for the requirements, I'll bring it up later. Don't look at me like that. I'm really embarrassed. Qin Yun pretended to be embarrassed and laughed twice. In the hearts of the few of them, Qin Yun's image has grown a bit higher. Qin Yun likes this kind of feeling. True and false, true and false. Anyway, after today, tomorrow will be different. Once the Vault of Asgard, the father of God Odin, is conquered, he will have what he wants. Do you still need to mention it yourself? Go see it yourself? No need at all. It's all yours at that time. Qin Yun doesn't care about these at all. Okay, since you said so, then we won't force it. Don't worry, Qin Yun, you will always be our friend in Asgard. The father of God Odin smiled heartily and patted Qin Yun on the shoulder. He highly recognized Qin Yun. Now that Qin Yun has said so, they will no longer force Qin Yun to put forward conditions. This matter is over. The rest, the most important thing is Jane. The Queen, Frigga, turned her head and licked Jane's tail with the kindness of a mother. Jane, feel the energy in your body with your heart. Qin Yun did you a great favor. You become a god. He is the second god among the humans on Earth. In the future, you don't need to visit the Earth often, just stay with us in Asgard. Frigga smiled and said to Jane, while looking at Thor, waiting for some time to stabilize the divine power in Jane's body. She thought about arranging Jane's and Thor's wedding. She is very concerned about this matter, and she also knows the relationship between Thor and Jane. So sincere and so passionate. Yes, Jane, you can sense the divine power in your body. When the time comes, let mother teach you magic. Girls from every family are not suitable for fighting head-on. Magic is your best choice. Thor also said in a hurry. In his opinion, a frontal battle has to be dealt with by a god of war like him. And Jane, just need to be behind him and help him with support. He promises that in the next time, he will use himself to protect Jane. Never put Jane in any danger. Jane smiled and nodded, then closed her eyes, only feeling a mysterious feeling in her body. Chapter 186, Amazing Ability. Afterwards, she gently waved her hand, and a lavender divine power emerged from her palm. Lavender? Queen Frigga said in surprise. Lavender is a once-in-a-lifetime magic power. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and purple are ranked last, which is enough to face its power. The father of God Odin looked at the divine power in Jane's hand, and couldn't help being slightly stunned. How many years have passed? He has seen the divine power of Lavender. Besides Jane, there is one more. That is, my own daughter, Hela. In addition, he has never seen anyone possess the divine power of Lavender. This really surprised him, but he didn't say it. The Queen of Heaven, Frigga, turned her head and glanced at the father of God Odin, only to see that the father of God Odin nodded slightly towards the Queen of God, Frigga. The two of them understood each other, looked into each other's eyes, and knew what the other was thinking. Hela, a name that they have never wanted to think about, but it is accompanied in their lives. The father of God Odin frowned slightly. The power of Lavender? Any idea? Jane asked curiously. She at the moment is like a child who just went to school. For what? She can't wait to break the casserole and ask the end. This is not what she learned in school, but an unknown field. In terms of the realm of God, she lacks too much. Many things, I don't know at all. Even if I know, I only know a little bit from Thor's mouth, and I have never experienced such a feeling in person. Yes, a big statement. The Queen of Heaven, Frigga, said with a smile. She stretched out her hand, and the light green power appeared in the palm of her hand. Your divine power is higher level than ours. In this case, you should be able to understand. If we use one kind of magic at the same time, your power will be stronger than mine. This is the power of your lavender divine power. After Frigga finished speaking slowly the next day, Jane's eyes widened in disbelief. She really didn't expect it. The lavender divine power that appeared after he had just broken through to God was so terrifying. You are only the most elementary level purple divine power. Look at this again. When the Queen, Frigga, spoke, the light green divine power in the palm of her hand became stronger, but she couldn't maintain this state for long. After using the spell a dozen times, her rich green divine power will turn into light green divine power. In order to preserve her divine power, Queen Frigga usually uses light green divine power because, at her level, most of the time, she doesn't need to make a move at all. Therefore, even if you encounter some things, the light green divine power can still deal with them. There is really no way to use more intense green divine power. Your green is more intense. Jane was surprised to find out, and then she wanted to try to make her lavender divine power more intense, but she felt insufficient in her heart. She let out a long sigh and shook her head helplessly. No, I'm not good enough. I can't reach your level. It seems that my days will be very long in the future, and the divine power of lavender is just the beginning. Although Jane was a little disappointed, this feeling stimulated her again, and she wanted to be stronger. She doesn't know anything about magic at all. She can only use the lavender divine power to carry out the most basic attacks, that's all. Don't be discouraged, the future will last forever. Take your time. After all, you can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. If you have just become a god, your divine power is stronger than ours. Then where are we going to reason? Frigga jokingly said that, and Thor on the side also nodded with his eyes widened. Jane, there is still a long way to go. You have to stabilize your mentality. Don't rush for quick success, otherwise, you will go backwards. For this aspect, you must be calm. I believe in your strength. Thor's trust in Jane is 100%. He has never loved such a woman so much. In the future, Jane's potential for improvement is huge, and she will be one of the mainstays of Asgard in the future, and she can even become the next queen. These things are just around the corner, so there is no need to worry. The lifespan of a god is long and distant, and 1 year may be a long time for humans on Earth. However, for gods, that is only a very small part of their long years. Asking for flowers. Thor has lived for hundreds of years, and someone like the father of God Odin has lived for thousands of years. How can such an existence care about that little time? Jane smiled slightly and nodded. She understood the truth of this. But all of this now is her unprecedented life. Kinyan at the side looked at the happy faces of the few of them, and his heart was already full of joy. It's all just a little bit of my own means, and it's like a miracle for them. This really made him unable to imagine. However, Kinyan didn't make a sound to interrupt the situation. He just wants to see how friendly they are now and how much they love each other. However, after tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, Asgard will have a different result. All of this is really a big joke. It really corresponds to the sentence, life is like a play, and play is like life. They are about to end their destiny, and the end of their life is coming soon. These people still think that they are gods and can have a long time, but all this will be changed by Kinyan himself. From now on, you and I will learn magic. I will definitely train you to be a great magician. Let everyone see how awesome you are. Jane, you are really the most capable person I have ever seen, and I will definitely be able to train you well. I won't let you just waste your ability in vain. Frigga said excitedly. How many years? She has not been so moved like today. For a while she didn't know how to express her feelings. Even, she is happier and happier than Jane. This unprecedented feeling. Thank you. I really don't know how to thank you. Jane spoke excitedly. Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked at Frigga, the queen in front of her. The kind queen, Frigga, made her feel as kind as her own mother. Ha ha, silly boy, what are you talking about? Thank you or not, we will become a family in the future. It's too strange for a family to say thank you. The queen, Frigga, said cheerfully, and she stroked Jane's long hair. Chapter 187 Talk. Yeah, Jane, you're going to be our family soon. You are very welcome. Thor also laughed and talked. Okay. The father of God Odin spoke unhurriedly. Let Jane rest early, and don't bother the two of them for too long. They still have to go through their wonderful two-person world. Even if you are learning magic, you will learn it tomorrow. It's getting late today, we should leave too. The father of God Odin said lightly, and the queen of heaven, Frigga, patted her forehead and said with a smile. Oh, I forgot. It's getting late today. You geese should go to bed early. Leave the rest to us. You don't have to worry too much. Jane, recharge your batteries and take a good rest. After 700 tomorrow, I will raise you as my own child." Jane nodded excitedly. After the father of God Odin and the queen, Frigga, looked at each other, they got up and were about to leave. Thor smiled awkwardly, scratched his head, and said embarrassedly, "Father, Mother, you should rest early too. Take care." All right, save your polite words for Jane," the father of God Odin jokingly said, after finishing speaking. The two got up and left, and Kinyan also stood up. At the moment, he continued to stay in Thor and Jane's cabin, which wasn't so fitting either. It would be better to go out with the father of God Odin and the queen Frigga. Although Kinyan is a distinguished guest of Asgard, the two-person world of Thor and Jane is not so good because of the disturbance at night. In the hut, Jane and Thor looked at each other, and they could see the hot feelings for each other from the eyes of each other. Jane finally became a god, and a big stone in Thor's heart fell. Before, she had been worrying about whether Jane could become a god, but it didn't take long before Jane finally became a god. And after becoming a god, Jane's ability is still excellent. It really makes Thor not know what to say. Thor stepped forward to hold Jane's hand excitedly, staring straight at Jane, making Jane at a loss for a moment. After turning off the light, the two hugged each other and lay down on the bed. The mood between each other is like eating sweets, so sweet. At the same time, the father of God Odin and the queen Frigga and Kinyan, the father of God Odin and the queen Frigga who came out of the house smiled and looked at Kinyan. For a moment, Kinyan was completely embarrassed. He looked at the eyes of the two and smiled a little embarrassedly. "Look at what I'm doing. I'm a little embarrassed to look at me like this." Kinyan spoke in puzzlement, but what he got in return was the laughter of the father of God Odin and the queen of God, Frigga. "Ha ha, I really don't know how to thank you. You have done us a great favor and solved our heart disease," the queen Frigga said cheerfully. She had been worried about Jane's physical condition before, and she didn't know where it came from. Being able to appear in Jane's body. If it wasn't for Kinyan, she would really worry that those energies would destroy Jane's body and lead to death. However, none of these worries happened to Jane. All rely on Kinyan's methods. "It's okay, it's nothing more than a little effort." No, we still have to say thank you," the father of God Odin also said with a smile. Kinyan glanced at the queen of heaven, Frigga, and then at the father of God Odin, then became serious. "Odin, I have something important to tell you. May I take a step to speak?" Seeing Kinyan's serious look, Frigga and the father of God Odin were confused for a while, but in such a happy mood, Kinyan suddenly changed his face and said to them. This made the two of them, confused and didn't know what to do for a while. The father of God Odin glanced at Kinyan suspiciously, and nodded. "Okay, I don't know what's going on." "Is it important?" the father of God Odin asked curiously. Kinyan nodded, and the father of God Odin looked at the diva Frigga. "You go back first, I'll have a few words with Kinyan." "Okay, don't worry too much, we're fine now," the queen of God, Frigga, said with relief, and the father of God Odin smiled at the queen of God, Frigga, and nodded. It's okay, I'll just talk to Kinyan." "Okay, then I'll go first." The father of God Odin and Kinyan watched the queen Frigga leave. The father of God Odin continued to ask, "Kinyan, what are you going to say? Can't she even listen?" Kinyan shook his head slowly. He wanted to tell the father of God Odin about the giants of Jotunheim attacking the left and right sides of Asgard. Only in this way, Bifrost and Asgard's rear will have very few Asgard soldiers stationed. At that time, Invisible has created excellent conditions for the Dark Elves led by Miles. In this way, Kinyan is planning to reduce the casualties of the Dark Elves. The development of all plans is clearly in Kinyan's mind, and he just wants to take advantage of this opportunity. "Yes, the matter is more serious. This is not a place to talk. Let's talk in another place." The reason why Kinyan said this is to make the father of God Odin realize the seriousness of the problem. With his thoughts of the father of God, it is hard not to take it seriously. The father of God Odin nodded slowly. "Relax, I'll take you somewhere." Immediately afterwards, a pale golden divine power enveloped Kinyan's body, and in the next second the two of them disappeared outside Thor and Jane's hut. In an instant, they reached the deepest part of the palace of Asgard, the study of the father of God Odin. Looking at the bookshelves full of books, Kinyan couldn't help sighing. There are so many books. 2.2 A lot of the secrets of the universe are in this bookshelf. "Don't say that." "What did you just say?" "What's important? Let's talk about it here." "No one knows about it here, and don't worry about the walls having ears." The father of God Odin waved lightly, and two chairs appeared behind the two of them, and they sat down facing each other like this. Kinyan smiled lightly, and spoke unhurriedly. "Tomorrow is the 5,000-year celestial body aggregation in Kyushu." "What?" ? Tomorrow is celestial aggregation? The father of God Odin suddenly became surprised. He looked at Kinyan with disbelief, just like the way Lorf and Loki looked at Kinyan back then. In the next second, the father of God Odin slowly withdrew his expression, but Kinyan understood everything. 188th Odin's shock. Don't be too surprised. tomorrow is the 5,000-year celestial body aggregation in Kyushu. Why are you so sure? I think you probably don't know about the fusion of celestial bodies in Kyushu. Also, you should not have been there for the last celestial body aggregation 5,000 years ago. The father of God Odin said curiously, not to mention that Kinyan was not the last time, but Kinyan did not exist 100% 5,000 years ago. If 5,000 years ago, there was one person on earth with such strength, as the Father of God, he would have noticed it a long time ago. It's not like seeing Kinyan now. What's more, the lifespan of human beings on the earth is only a few decades, and how few people live to be hundreds of years old. For 5,000 years, human beings on the earth have gone through countless cycles. The Father of God Odin knows about the celestial body fusion once every 5,000 years, and he remembered the heavy price of the last celestial body fusion. At that time, in order to rule Kyushu, the Dark Elves wanted everything to be plunged into darkness. That stop, 21, was quite intense. If Asgard hadn't become stronger, that time would really have allowed the Dark Elves to succeed. However, for nearly 1,000 years, he has not received any news about the Dark Elves at all. He also doesn't know where the Dark Elves are drifting in the universe. Could it be that this time, the gathering of celestial bodies once every 5,000 years, will the Dark Elves make a comeback? The method of the Father of God Odin can only push out that the celestial body aggregation that occurs once every 5,000 years is just recently, but he doesn't know the exact date at all. But, I didn't expect Kinyan to say that it's tomorrow. He doesn't know what Kinyan's basis is. How do you know about the 5,000-year celestial body aggregation in Kyushu? The Father of God Odin calmly asked Kinyan curiously, and Kinyan smiled faintly. This matter is not as difficult as imagined. You just need to tell me, do you believe it or not? That's all. You don't have to say much else. It's useless to talk too much. Kinyan's contented look made the Father of God Odin's heart beat for a moment, and he didn't know whether to believe it or not. Does a small Earth human being really know so much? That is really too scary. The Father of God Odin dare not think deeply. If he continues to think, he will fall into a deep chain of suspicion. He shook his head slowly, then nodded again. He was a little elusive about Kinyan for a moment. I definitely believe it. I just don't know what your basis is. You know, we are very concerned about the 5,000-year celestial body aggregation in Kyushu. However, people in many countries don't know this at all. The Father of God Odin sighed. As the Father of God, he didn't know as much as Kinyan. Secrets must not be leaked. There are some things, you can guess. I don't need to say more about the rest. And what I want to tell you next will be very important. Kinyan laughed and said, it was the first time he had seen the Father of God Odin so conflicted. He didn't know what to say for a while. You say, I'm listening. Besides this, if you have any other information, please tell me all of it. I really can't see through you more and more. The Father of God Odin sighed, nodded, and continued talking. Tomorrow the celestial body will converge, and someone will attack Asgard. Kinyan spoke unhurriedly, but these words, like a heavy hammer, slammed into the heart of the Father of God Odin. How many years he has not participated in the war? No fight. Asgard has been in a stable state all these years, very peaceful. It's just that among the Kyushu, other countries seem to be a little turbulent, but to the Father of God Odin, it doesn't matter at all. Those small fights will not affect Asgard at all, and they will not affect Asgard at all. This is also the reason why Asgard's strength has been improving over the years. They can constantly improve themselves in peace, while other kingdoms may have some disputes. Those countries want to resolve disputes, but Asgard doesn't use it at all, thus widening the gap with other countries. As everyone knows, the giants of Jotunheim and the Dark Elf clan have been in a state of steady development all these years. If the Father of God Odin knew this, he would definitely kill them without leaving any spare energy. Kill them all. Who dares attack Asgard? It's so self-defeating. We Asgard are powerful. What other country dares to challenge us? Isn't that what they are asking for their own death? The Father of God Odin smiled lightly, and the tense and oppressive atmosphere was dispelled by him in an instant. No, I have reliable information. Asgard has been very nice to me during this time. The people of Asgard are also very kind to me one by one, which makes me feel warm. I don't want Asgard to return to war and strife. I want to see the smiles of the people of Asgard. Kinyan spoke with sincerity, but he didn't know that under his hypocritical face, the 487 small calculations in his heart had already begun to calculate the Father of God Odin. The Father of God Odin didn't even know that he was walking towards Kinyan's complete set step by step, and all them were voluntary by the Father of God Odin. There is no point that Kinyan is forcing the Father of God Odin. He is like a child, being led everywhere by a single person. Who is it who has such courage? No, which side should I say? They'll ask for it. We, the people and soldiers of Asgard, will tell them the answer. The Father of God Odin thought about it thoughtfully, but couldn't think of a reason for it. The Father of God Odin said angrily, he has 100% trust in the people and soldiers of Asgard. The soldiers of Asgard are definitely strong. If anyone dares to challenge the majesty of Asgard, Asgard will definitely tell them the answer. No, don't worry. I tell you, it's actually the giants of Jotunheim, and I got reliable information. The giants of Jotunheim know that the left and right sides of Asgard are weak places, and they will attack from both sides. I also know the time. It just depends on whether you believe me or not, that's all," Kinyan said with a leisurely smile. Chapter 189 Questioning. He wants to get the father of God Odin to take the bait step by step, and wait until the father of God Odin finds out that he has taken the bait. When there is no way to break free, that is when Kinyan succeeds. Giants of Jotunheim, attack left and right of Asgard. The father of God Odin widened his eyes, pondering the words in it. The giants of Jotunheim were defeated by me back then, and took away their energy source. The ancient winter box. The box of ancient winter is now in Kinyan's hands, and Kinyan knows that the frost giants will make a comeback. Tomorrow, we will take advantage of the celestial body aggregation once every 5,000 years to attack the left and right sides of Asgard. However, he, as the father of God, has no news of all this. The father of God Odin couldn't help but wondered in his mind whether Kinyan and the giants of Jotunheim clan had something to do. That's why Kinyan knew so much information. A murderous intent flashed in the father of God Odin's eyes. He wanted to ask Kinyan clearly. Otherwise, at any time, he might choose to make a move and kill Kinyan. No matter how much you pay, Kinyan must be kept. However, all of this is just what the father of God Odin thinks, not to mention whether he has the strength, even if he wants to keep Kinyan. Not paying some tragic price, that's something you don't even have to think about. Kinyan kept looking at the eyes of the father of God Odin. When he saw a slight change in the eyes of the father of God Odin, Kinyan couldn't help sneering in his heart. HMPH, if you hadn't needed to lead Asgard, you can still live until now? You are really beyond your control. I don't know, the sky is high and the earth is thick. From Kinyan's point of view, although the father of God Odin is very powerful, there are so many ways to stop him. Besides, Kinyan is much bigger than Kinyan just by virtue of his natural strength. Everything was disguised by Kinyan, making the father of God Odin subconsciously feel that he could handle Kinyan. But he didn't know that this was a fundamentally impossible thing. If the father of God Odin made a move, then Kinyan would definitely make the first move before him. This is Kinyan's trust in his own strength. Still, he doesn't want to do this. He wants to use Asgard's soldiers to suppress the giants of Jotunheim. Only the father of God Odin can do this, otherwise Kinyan would not waste his time in front of the father of God Odin. Kinyan, how do you know this, Tilda? Where is the box of ancient winter that I gave you earlier? The father of God Odin frowned and asked back. Even his tone changed a little, as if he was asking a question. Someone told me these things. But whoever told me, I can't tell you. Don't be so hostile to me, I'm a guest of Asgard. Kinyan laughed and said, but from the father of God Odin's point of view, Kinyan wanted to take the opportunity to get away with it. It's over. The ancient winter box is most likely given to the giants of Jotunheim by Kinyan. Oops, I'm simply helping the evildoers. Where did Kinyan get the news? This series has drawn a big question mark in the heart of the father of God. The father of God Odin doesn't care so much if Kinyan can't tell him where these messages come from. The box of ancient winter can no longer be handed over. Then the father of God Odin has only one choice, to kill Kinyan here. How many years has there been bloodshed in his study? Unfortunately, it might happen today. No, you have to tell me. Where did you know that? Otherwise, I have no way to deploy. After all, knowing yourself and the enemy can win every battle. If I don't even know this information, how should I deploy troops and generals? All this, it's not that I don't trust you. Instead, Kinyan, you have to tell me something. The father of God Odin pretended to be embarrassed and looked at Kinyan. At the same time, the father of God Odin's brain was also working rapidly. He wants to capture every little detail of Kinyan. The father of God Odin recently showed a smile. How many years have passed, and this is the first time he has ever treated a human being on Earth like this. He has always felt that humans on Earth are friendly, at least they will not pose any threat to Asgard. However, at the moment, because of Kinyan alone, he will change the entire human race on Earth. The father of God Odin frowned and looked at Kinyan, fixedly staring at Kinyan, waiting for Kinyan's answer. Kinyan stood up slowly, sighed helplessly, and watched the father of God Odin's reaction. Little did he know, Kinyan had already laughed out loud in his heart, and he had thrown the hook out. And the father of God Odin firmly put the fishhook on his mouth, hung himself tightly, and had no thought of breaking free at all. The father of God Odin is falling into Kinyan's trap step by step, but in all of this, the father of God Odin has not found anything wrong. Kinyan's strategy is like this: let the other party fall into the trap unknowingly, and when the other party finds out that he has been tricked and has been fooled, it is already too late. I'm stuck in the quagmire, and there's no way to break free. Oh, I didn't want to tell you. I also have something to hide. If you press me like this, it will make me very chill. Kinyan's troubled look made the father of God Odin sneer, and the father of God Odin also stood up slowly, with his right hand ready to attack Kinyan at any time. No, I'm not forcing you. I also have my own difficulties. I am the king of Asgard. You have to understand me. The father of God Odin pretended to be helpless, and said earnestly. He patted his forehead, showing his embarrassment to the fullest. Li Zhao, but These two people are human spirits. They are not fools. There is a lot of Xiu in each other's hearts, just pretending all the time, not putting things on the surface. I can tell you, but you must hold on. Otherwise, I don't want to tell you. Qin Yan sighed helplessly and said slowly. The father of God Odin burst out laughing for a moment. He stepped forward and patted Qin Yan on the shoulder. Qin Yan, just tell me that you are still a guest and friend of Asgard. Asgard won't make things difficult for you. I can hold on. Just tell me. Let me take another look at the box of ancient winter. The father of God Odin said cheerfully. But all this is just a superficial disguise. It's Loki. Loki finds out he's not your son. Chapter 190 Odin's response. A child of Lorf, chief of the giants of Jotunheim. Qin Yan spoke unhurriedly, but every word was like a heavy hammer hitting the father of God Odin's heart. The father of God Odin definitely knows about this. After all, he did it himself. Still, he's been good to Loki over the years. Treat him like your own child. Not as good as Thor, but not bad. To outsiders, Luke is still the prince of Asgard. No one can ever question Loki's status. Even when Loki makes mistakes sometimes, the father of God Odin will choose to forgive Loki instead of punishing him. Listening to all this, the father of God Odin staggered and sat down on the chair again. All of a sudden, it was a big blow to him, and he felt that the father of God Odin, who was visible to the naked eye, was aging. Qin Yan stepped forward, patted the father of God Odin on the shoulder, and spoke earnestly. Oh, I don't want to tell you either. I don't know if you can stand it. I see you like this. I feel bad in my heart. However, for the sake of our friendship, you Asgards have treated me well. I can only tell you, I hope you can hold on. As for the box of ancient winter, it's still in my hands, and I didn't give it to the giants of Jotunheim. While speaking, Qin Yan's right palm suddenly felt a cold breath, which made the father of God Odin tremble involuntarily. Feeling familiar, the father of God Odin raised his head and looked over, seeing that the box of ancient winter was still in Qin Yan's hands. The father of God Odin couldn't help showing a wry smile. He himself had misunderstood Qin Yan before. As everyone knows, everything is for Qin Yan's own consideration, and he is afraid that he will not be able to accept it for a while. The father of God Odin sighed helplessly. At this moment, he didn't know how old he was. It wasn't his appearance, but his psychology. His heart was hit hard by this news. But the father of God Odin, still unwilling to give up the last glimmer of hope, raised his head to look at Qin Yan, and slowly opened his mouth. Qin Yan, why did he tell you these things? Does he really know he is a child of the giants of Jotunheim? Not mine. For how many years, I have hidden it so well. I thought he would never know the truth of the matter. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it to be discovered by him. Also, he's a smart kid. He can notice details that others don't. It's normal to know all this. The father of God Odin spoke. The first words were addressed to Qin Yan, but the last few words were addressed to himself. For Loki, the father of God Odin has a lot of understanding. After all, they are also people who have lived with each other for a long time. That's right. When he came to me, he knows that the box of ancient winter is in my hands. I want to get the box of ancient winter in my hand, so I told you all this. He said that Asgard is about to be breached. It's useless for me to stay. It's better to be with the Ice Thunder Giants. But how could I do that? You guys are so nice to me. If I do that, I'm not a human being. Qin Yan said viciously. His appearance was extremely sincere, and his sincerity completely deceived the father of God Odin. The father of God Odin has already understood the ins and outs. He never expected that Loki found the giants of Jotunheim and reached a cooperation with them to attack Asgard. Asgard is still his home. He has lived in this place for countless years, yet he has the heart to destroy it like this. He also told me the specific time for the celestial bodies to gather once every 5,000 years. He said he had been preparing this plan for many years. Everything before was his disguise. Qin Yan blamed all this on Loki's body. Anyway, the mouth grew on Qin Yan's body. Qin Yan can say whatever he wants. He doesn't care too much. The reason why I told you today, just to give you some time to prepare, don't ask Loki. Otherwise, it would be to scare the snake. And Asgard is being targeted all the time. It can't end by killing a Loki. Qin Yan told the pros and cons of the problem to the father of God Odin. The father of God Odin is a smart man who definitely knows everything. He wouldn't be stupid enough to ask Loki. That is undoubtedly tantamount to scaring the snake away. He can't ask Loki. He has to treat Loki well and keep Loki steady. Come find Loki after the giants of Jotunheim are gone. That is the right choice. The father of God Odin coughed and stood up. The previous decadence swept away, replaced by the king of Asgard. A golden light flashed in the eyes of the father of God Odin. He sneered, and spoke slowly. HMPH, I'll let them know it was all wrong choices. Asgard is so powerful, I will destroy the entire army of the giants of Jotunheim. He wants to attack the left and right sides of Asgard. Then let him come. I promise to let him come and go. The father of God Odin snorted coldly, and Qin Yan smiled in satisfaction. Ha ha, this is the king of Asgard, worthy of the title of the father of God. Don't worry, whatever help you need from me, I will help. I'm just you wishing you could take my word for it. Don't lose the big because of the small. Qin Yan spoke earnestly. and the father of God Odin nodded heavily, realizing the seriousness of the problem. An idea quickly appeared in his mind. Since the giants of Jotunheim are going to attack the left and right sides of Asgard, then arrange the Asgard soldiers to the left and right sides of Asgard for a heavy defense. After the giants of Jotunheim find out, it will be too late. Since the giants of Jotunheim are based on Loki's information, and the father of God Odin, as the king of Asgard, has a deeper understanding of Asgard, he's going to catch the giants of Jotunheim by surprise. Lesson learned: giants of Jotunheim, let the defeat of giants of Jotunheim many years ago experience again. Moreover, this time it was not just a simple defeat of the giants of Jotunheim clan, but annihilation of the entire giants of Jotunheim clan. Among the Kyushu, there are no more giants of Jotunheim. This is what the father of God Odin must do. Okay, that's all I'll say. I know you still have a lot of arrangements. When the time comes, you need my help, then you just say, I will help you right away. Chapter 191, Excited Malekith. Kinyan patted his chest to assure. The father of God Odin nodded. Don't worry, Kinyan, you are a smart person. After tomorrow, you will be happy with the choice you made. Cooperating with the giants of Jotunheim is a dead end, but cooperating with us is a bright future. The father of God Odin spoke lightly, and then continued speaking. Okay, I won't say anything about the rest. I know, you still have a lot to say to me, but I have to arrange it tonight. After tomorrow, we will win the battle, and let's talk and drink again. The father of God Odin spoke with pride and ambition. Kinyan nodded, and continued with the father of God Odin after a few simple words. Then he left the study of the father of God Odin, and the father of God Odin followed closely behind. He recruited several generals from Asgard, and quickly arranged everything perfectly. Moreover, all these things were done quietly. No one noticed, not even Thor. Besides, what about Loki? If Loki doesn't know, he won't tell the giants of Jotunheim, and by the time the giants of Jotunheim find out, it will be too late, and the giants of Jotunheim will be hit hard by Asgard. The father of God Odin's order has been issued, that is to kill everyone in the giants of Jotunheim clan, absolutely leaving no future troubles. No matter what the cost, go to the giants of Jotunheim. This was the death order of the father of God Odin, and the generals of Asgard were a little surprised when they knew it. However, they reacted quickly, and they quickly made arrangements, guaranteed to let the giants of Jotunheim come to experience the feeling of hell on earth. For the arrangement of the father of God Odin, they have no opinion. Moreover, at such a time, there are still people who want to invade Asgard. Asgard is their home, the home they have survived for countless years. Asgard has maintained peace for a long time, and I didn't expect that the time of peace will be broken soon. They are all fighting high, and they are about to kill all the intruders. At the same time, Kinyan returned to his house satisfied, although the father of God Odin didn't tell him how he arranged it. However, Kinyan clearly knew that the father of God Odin's methods would be very ruthless, and there would be no mercy. For those around me, for my family, the father of God Odin will be especially gentle and peaceful. However, for outsiders and enemies, the father of God Odin's method is to let them know their wrong decisions. Haha, bringing the father of God Odin's contradictions and Loki's contradictions together. I'll see what they do then. Loki, if you can successfully survive this war, you must be Fei Wong from Asgard. If you hadn't survived, you might not be king of Asgard. Kinyan was talking to himself, and he already had a clear idea in his heart. That is, the chess piece Loki is dispensable. If he can survive, it will naturally give him a chance, a fortune. But if he can't survive, then what he said and promised before is all nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. Kinyan squinted his eyes, looked at the night outside, and let out a long sigh. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock everything will change. I will make my own victory out of it. Haha, a bunch of stupid people, all of them are in my hands. It's a pity. What a beautiful Asgard. It will soon be in ruins. Kinyan said lightly. He clearly understood how cruel a war is to a country. The people of Asgard hope that they can maintain peace all the time, but before he maintains a state of peace, the father of God Odin is an out-and-out king of war. By means of his own thunder, he firmly controlled Asgard in his own hands, and dealt a serious blow to the giants of Jotunheim and the Dark Elves. That is, the father of God Odin discovered later that blindly instigating war is not a good thing that is conducive to peace. Only then did the strategy change, otherwise Asgard would still be a warlike nation. Seeking flowers. In Kinyan's heart, there is more or less little anticipation. At 7 o'clock tomorrow night, a cruel war will begin. Kinyan has seen many things, such as fleet attacks, alien creatures invading the earth and so on. However, it was the first time he was about to see a war, a fight between people. Such a scene must be very bloody and cruel. But Kinyan didn't feel the slightest bit of fear in himself. Instead, there was a little anticipation in his heart. He wanted to see such a scene, a bloody scene. While Kinyan was thinking, suddenly there was another person in the room, and that person was hidden in the darkness. Others can't sense his existence, but for Kinyan, the moment he appeared, Kinyan immediately sensed it. Kinyan looked at the dark place in the corner and said with a faint smile, "Here we come." The person who came was Malekith, who had been waiting anxiously tonight, wandering outside Qin Yun's house. On the premise that no one found out, they have been waiting for Qin Yun to come back. He wants to know the good news Qin Yun told him, and at the same time, he also wants to get the most precious thing of the Dark Elves, that is TIE particles. As long as you get TIE particles, even if the Dark Elves suffer heavy casualties, there will still be a glimmer of hope. However, if TIE particles were not obtained, it would be bad news for the Dark Elves. Malekith appeared from the darkness, looked at Qin Yun respectfully. At the moment he was extremely humble in front of Qin Yun. Malekith nodded and said in a deep voice, How is it going tonight? Can TIE particles be delivered to me? As long as we get TIE particles, even if we meet Asgard's thousands of troops tomorrow, we still have a glimmer of hope. This is the confidence that TIE particles gave us, and we hope that TIE particles can return to the hands of the Dark Elves. Malekith looked at Qin Yun respectfully, always paying attention to the zero expression on Qin Yun's face. Chapter 192 Recovering TIE Particles. Otherwise, Jane would not have such a big reaction. Qin Yun must have got it. Malekith's small eyes rolled round, waiting for Qin Yun's exact words. Qin Yun smiled faintly, slowly stretched out his right hand, and a red force emerged from Qin Yun's palm. Malekith's eyes widened. It was TIE particles. The moment TIE particles appeared, TIE particles became more active, which had been suppressed in Qin Yun's body before. Now, after reappearing, TIE particles can't wait to break free from Qin Yun's shackles, and want to break out desperately. However, in Qin Yun's hands, how could it be so easy to break free? Qin Yun smiled lightly, then said TIE particles and put them away. In an instant, Qin Yun's body turned red, but in an instant, it returned to its original color. 460. It really is TIE particles. You got it. You really did it. Malekith half kneeled in front of Qin Yun respectfully. When he saw the red power, he felt a familiar feeling in it. Malekith can be sure that it is TIE particles. No one is more familiar with TIE particles than him. He took a deep breath, feeling the residual warmth of TIE particles. A smile appeared on Malekith's face, and he was a little surprised that there wasn't more of it. He knows exactly what TIE particles look like. TIE particles disappeared for a long time before, but now their wildness has increased greatly, and they can carry out such suppression in Qin Yun's hands. Malekith had to lament Qin Yun's strength. He realized that he had underestimated Qin Yun's strength. Qin Yun was able to successfully suppress TIE particles by virtue of his physical body. Such strength is really unfathomable. Unknowingly, a slight change occurred in Malekith's heart. He used to feel that it was a shame for him to follow Qin Yun and let all the Dark Elves submit to Qin Yun's subordinates. However, he doesn't think so now. On the contrary, Malekith felt very lucky that Qin Yun chose him. If Qin Yun chooses the giants of Jotunheim, then his Dark Elves will be sacrificed. What's more, Qin Yun's strength can also subdue him, and it is acceptable to bow his head in front of the real strong. If it is said that Malekith will feel ashamed to be with someone who is many times weaker than himself and only relies on heresy. But in Qin Yun, he discovered more things, and he felt that the strength he had seen Qin Yun showed before was just the tip of Qin Yun's iceberg. TIE particles definitely can be given to you, but now the wild nature of TIE particles is a bit strong. I don't know if you can suppress TIE particles. It's easy to get TIE particles, but let TIE particles break free. If you run away again, it will be difficult. It's easy to get TIE particles once, but it's hard to get TIE particles again. Qin Yun spoke slowly, beating Malekith inside and outside the invisible. He hoped that after Malekith could obtain the TIE particles, he would exert the greatest power of TIE particles. If, even the TIE particles can't be suppressed, and the TIE particles are allowed to run away instead, everything before may come to naught. Qin Yun looked at Malekith seriously, and Malekith immediately felt something huge. However, the greater the pressure, the greater the motivation. Malekith believes that he can do it. Yes, we Dark Elves have a special method. TIE particles are in our hands. We can suppress TIE particles that way, and it can exert 120% of the power of TIE particles, or even 150% of the power. Malekith has such confidence that TIE particles have been with him for a long time in his hands. If anyone knows TIE particles best, it must belong to him. He and TIE particles have also developed a bond with each other. They can feel each other's feelings and thoughts. This is what Malekith is most proud of. How many people have no way to get TIE particles, and even get TIE particles? They can only watch TIE particles slip away. That's pathetic. However, no such thing happens with Malekith. Qin Yun looked at Malekith's firm eyes and nodded. He already had the answer in his heart. If you want to use the strength of Malekith and the Dark Elves tomorrow, TIE particles must be handed over to them. Moreover, Qin Yun also believes that Malekith, once he gets TIE particles, can greatly reduce the casualties of the Dark Elves. Those are all my soldiers in the future, my own strength. If I can save more strength, I will save more. In the future, the Dark Elves led by Malekith, Qin Yun will still be of greater use. Qin Yun smiled faintly, stepped forward and patted Malekith on the shoulder, and said softly, "Get up, now that you have said so. Then the TIE particles will be delivered to you. If something goes wrong with the TIE particles, then you disappear with TIE particles too." A cold light flashed across Qin Yun's eyes. He meant what he said seriously. If Malekith is really likely to do this, then Qin Yun really doesn't mind killing Malekith. When Malekith heard it, he was ecstatic for a moment, looked up at Qin Yun's serious expression, and he spoke excitedly. "Don't worry, TIE particles are in my hands. There will never be any mistakes. TIE particles live, people live, TIE particles die. Definitely, I will swear to protect TIE particles. There will never be any mistakes." "Thanks for the trust," Malekith answered sincerely. 1.0. Qin Yun smiled with satisfaction, and raised his hand. TIE particles entered Malekith's body with red light. Malekith didn't react for a while, but he immediately sensed the existence of TIE particles. Malekith secretly rejoiced, but immediately felt the TIE particles wanted to break free from his body, and ran out desperately. Before he had time to tell Qin Yun, Malekith immediately realized that something was wrong, and hurriedly sat down cross-legged, closed his eyes and felt the TIE particles with his heart. TIE particles felt a familiar feeling in Malekith's body. However, this familiar feeling is so long ago that even TIE particles are almost forgotten. TIE particles wanted to run out desperately, but Malekith seemed to stretch out a big net, pulling TIE particles tightly. Chapter 193, Greatly Increased Strength. He shouted desperately in his heart. "Come back, TIE particles, my partner. I am the leader of the Dark Elves, and I will show your strength once again. Let all the people of the world feel how terrible you are, and you will not humiliate you in my body. On the contrary, the whole world will hear the name of TIE particles." TIE particles gradually stabilized a little bit. He had a familiar feeling for Malekith. Qin Yun stood in front of Malekith, looking at Malekith curiously. At the moment, Malekith's body glowed red, and Qin Yun couldn't help wondering what kind of method Malekith used to suppress TIE particles. Moreover, let TIE particles no longer think about breaking free, but stay in Malekith's body calmly. Become an integral part of Malekith. This kind of TIE particles belong to the calendar area of nature. When Qin Yun wanted to use Malekith to obtain TIE particles, he learned how to deal with a power similar to TIE particles in the future. How to do it. Qin Yun has a strong desire to learn about this aspect. However, Qin Yun only saw Malekith's eyes close tightly, frowning, and then 21 did not respond. TIE particles in Malekith's body, like breathing, the red light came and went, dimmed for a while, brightened again for a while. Fortunately, Qin Yun had already made precautionary preparations, and he turned his house into a barrier. People outside would not see any changes in Qin Yun's room at all. After feeling Malekith's shout, TIE particles gradually calmed down. Malekith at the moment is ecstatic. This is a very good start. Being able to contact TIE particles calmly means that half of the success has been achieved. Next, the other half had to wait for TIE particles to feel their own power, that familiar feeling. Then, successfully recovered the TIE particles in the body. Malekith was very happy in his heart. After getting TIE particles, it represented the symbol of the rise of the Dark Elves. After so many years, TIE particles have finally returned to their side. For thousands of years before they disappeared, the Dark Elves were a piece of grey. They even feel that they have been exiled in the outer space universe, without any hope. The only remaining hope, TIE particles, has disappeared. Fortunately, Malekith's methods are clever and he is of the same age, so everyone in the Dark Elves is appeased. This is why Malekith's rule in the Dark Elves is so strong. Now as long as TIE particles are brought back to the Dark Elves, the people of the Dark Elves will feel hope again. Their fighting spirit will be instantly inspired. Malekith knew this truth clearly, so when he regained TIE particles, he was only allowed to succeed and not to fail. There is only this chance. If it fails, let alone how Qin Yun sees himself. When he returned to the Dark Elf clan, he couldn't even give an explanation to the Dark Elf clan's people. As long as it succeeds, then everything is happy. Once it fails, if Malekith is given countless chances, there may be only one result, that is failure. This is the habit of TIE particles. You can get TIE particles once, you can get countless times. But if you lose TIE particles once, then you may lose TIE particles countless times. Even if TIE particles appear in front of you and float across your palm, you still have no way to hold TIE particles firmly in your palm. This is the peculiarity of TIE particles. Malekith is also well aware of this truth. He must firmly grasp this opportunity, absolutely not let the opportunity escape from his palm. Gradually, a smile appeared on Malekith's face. The communication between him and TIE particles is getting better and better, and there is still some progress, which gives Malekith a glimmer of hope. As long as you keep going like this, you will be close to winning TIE particles. As long as there are no other emergencies, it is only a matter of time before TIE particles are taken down. Qin Yun looked at the corner of Malekith's mouth with a smile, and knew that the matter was settled. But he was still a little disappointed. From under the appearance of Malekith, he couldn't see what kind of means Malekith had to recover TIE particles. He could only look at Malekith eagerly, and wait for Malekith to absorb it before he could ask clearly. However, Qin Yun didn't want to force Malekith. After all, Everyone has some little secrets and tricks. They rely on this kind of small means to survive in the world. If they tell others about their small means, it is tantamount to making trouble for themselves. Thanks to Qin Yan, if outsiders have such thoughts, they will immediately dispel their thoughts. Because thinking like this is really ridiculous. Even if they are as close as brothers, they would not have such a ridiculous idea. After about 20 minutes, when Qin Yan was getting impatient, Malekith slowly opened his eyes, only to see a smile on Malekith's face. He laughed loudly, and hurriedly stood up, feeling the strength Thai particles brought to him. In an instant, a red light shrouded Malekith's body. There is a hint of red in his dark 447 magic, and that red is what Thai particles brought to Malekith. Moreover, now Malekith's strength has also improved by leaps and bounds, and has increased a lot. If he faces Lorth, the leader of the giants of Jotunheim, he can capture Lorth alive in less than 100 rounds. This is a capture. A strong player of their level can still kill the opponent and pay a huge price. But if the opponent is captured alive, the difficulty will be quite great. No one can be 100% sure, but Malekith feels that he can do it. He only felt that his body was full of strength. He laughed loudly. Thai particles, how many years old? You finally came back to me. I will take you with me again, and make the whole universe feel dark. Definitely do not disgrace your reputation as Thai particles. While Malekith shouted, the red light on Malekith's body flickered, as if responding to Malekith's words. Now, Malekith has Thai particles again, even more familiar than before. After getting Thai particles again, Malekith has a deeper understanding of Thai particles. He promises that this time he can definitely exert 150% of the power of Thai particles. Chapter 194 Qin Yan's arrangement. This is his self-confidence. His absolute self-confidence. Qin Yan has been watching Malekith's changes. He felt Malekith's strong breath, and also laughed. The strength of Malekith means that Qin Yan's own strength will also increase. Qin Yan looked at Malekith's excited expression, and then spoke. Malekith, take back the Thai particles. Don't make too much noise. I'm just changing the room into a small enchantment now. You make too much noise. The enchantment will not be able to support it. After hearing this, Malekith quickly took back the Thai particles, and his appearance returned to darkness. Afterwards, Qin Yan waved his hand, and the barrier will disappear. It's not that he can only make a small enchantment, but feels that there is no need to make a big end. It is time-consuming and labor-intensive to make too large an enchantment, and you have to worry about being noticed by others. Small enchantment is already very good, but the small enchantment also has a slight disadvantage, that is, when there is too much movement inside, the small enchantment cannot sustain it. The small enchantment will be torn apart by itself, exposing all the contents inside. Qin Yan was not worried about exposing his relationship with Malekith, just to avoid unnecessary trouble. He still felt that everything should develop in a safe and stable manner, and the previous plan had already been paved. If he exposed his relationship with Malekith now, it would still cause a lot of trouble. Qin Yan doesn't want to see such a scene, so no matter what, it's better to be careful. At the moment, Malekith was in a good mood, and got the Thai particles again, which made him absolutely sure of his own strength. Moreover, with the help of Thai particles, he has risen to another level. Even if he meets the father of God Odin, he will be able to force a Thai. And it won't be like 5,000 years ago. When I faced the father of God Odin, I could only run away. Haha, I got Thai particles again. My strength has improved. Malekith said with a smile. Qin Yan also nodded. I already feel it. You just need to preserve your strength and the Dark Elves, and try to avoid losses. There are no casualties in the war. That is impossible. However, it is still necessary to minimize casualties. Qin Yan said earnestly. Malekith nodded quickly. He knew this truth very well. Every member of the Dark Elf clan is a darling, and he doesn't want to see his people die. Although, war is a bad means. But up to now, there is no turning back. He has made a choice for the Dark Elves. He firmly believed that his choice was correct. Only in this way can the Dark Elves have a better future in the future. He is a responsible leader. He will never let down the trust of every member of the Dark Elves. This is the determination he secretly made when he became the leader of the Dark Elves. But Malekith changed his mind again. What he led the Dark Elves to attack tomorrow was the most important transportation hub in Asgard, Bifrost. It is possible to reduce casualties, but it doesn't mean that there will be few Dark Elves casualties. Bifrost was heavily guarded by Asgard soldiers, and he couldn't help but sweat for the people of the Dark Elves. Qin Yan saw Malekith's concerns, and Malekith lowered his head and frowned. He just got Thai particles, and he became so serious in an instant. Anyone who thinks about it can clearly know what Malekith is thinking. Qin Yan said with a faint smile. Don't worry. I've made arrangements. Tomorrow there will be few Asgard soldiers in Bifrost. As the giants of Jotunheim attack on the left and right sides of Asgard, the number of soldiers there will greatly increase. Qin Yan patted Malekith on the shoulder, signaling to reassure Malekith. Don't call yourself worried before something happens. No matter how much you think about it, you can't change it. Only when you experience it and try to change it, will there be a possibility. What? Really? Malekith's eyes widened, and his mood suddenly changed. He looked at Qin Yan excitedly. He thought Qin Yan was just joking before, but he looked up at Qin Yun's serious expression. Just know that Qin Yun didn't lie to himself. That's Asgard Bifrost. Is it really possible? He calmed down instantly after being excited just now. He knew that Qin Yun would not lie to himself. However, this matter is not decided by Qin Yun, but by the father of God Odin. What Qin Yun said now, if something changes tomorrow, it will be the Dark Elves who will suffer in the end. Although war casualties are unavoidable, but if you forcefully gnaw on the hard bone of Asgard Bifrost, the impact on the Dark Elves is still great. Although it has been obtained now, it has greatly improved the strength of the Dark Elves. But no matter what, it can't increase the number of Dark Elves. Wandering in the outer space universe for thousands of years, the number of Dark Elves and their people is very limited. Now the approximate number of Dark Elves has just exceeded 10,000, which is far less than the number of Asgard. This is a stable place with a lot of resources, which brings benefits to an ethnic group. In a stable place, it can develop greatly, people enjoy themselves happily, and the population will naturally increase. Thinking of this, Malekith sighed helplessly in his heart. His goal is to make the number of Dark Elves break through 100,000, but when he thinks about it carefully, it's too far away. If Asgard can be occupied, then this idea is definitely possible. Okay, just want to occupy Asgard. How easy is it to do? However, now an opportunity is about to happen in front of him. He wants to hear what Qin Yun has to say. Tomorrow is a crucial stop. As long as it succeeds, occupying Asgard will definitely not be a problem. There is also a lot of room for improvement in the development of the Dark Elves in the future. Everything is tomorrow, but he is not thinking about doing his best. In tomorrow's war, keep more personnel of the Dark Elves. Listen to what Qin Yun said. Malekith still has some doubts about this, because in his opinion, Qin Yun cannot make the father of God Odin change his strategy. As everyone knows, all of this has already been completely resolved by Qin Yun. Even, the father of God Odin didn't find anything wrong, but felt that the information provided by Qin Yun was very valuable. All of this is Qin Yun's means. Chapter 195, Scheme. Qin Yun, this is no child's play. As the leader of the Dark Elves, I have been accepted by you now. The people of the Dark Elves are also your people. You must ensure that more people of the Dark Elves can survive. This matter is extremely critical. Malekith spoke earnestly, and he looked at Qin Yun with hot eyes. Hope Qin Yun can give a positive answer. Qin Yun smiled faintly, shrugged, and patted Malekith on the shoulder. He understood Malekith's concerns. He said with a light smile, "Don't worry, put your heart in your belly. I've already arranged everything. You know why I took it from Jane's body after. Are you back so late?" Qin Yun looked at Malekith, and Malekith shook his head subconsciously. He didn't know all this. In his opinion, Qin Yun spent too much time on Jane's body, so he came back so late. I don't even know what Qin Yun did after that. I'm off to find Odin. What? Go to the father of God Odin? Seek the father of God Odin for what? Confess the plan? 023, or is there something else? Malekith glanced at Qin Yun suspiciously. He felt that Qin Yun was not someone who crossed rivers and demolished bridges. The people of the Dark Elves will not be caught in fire and water. But after thinking about it, Malekith doesn't know what Qin Yun said to the father of God Odin, so that the father of God Odin can send the garrison of Asgard Bifrost to other places. It is impossible for Qin Yun to have a perfect tongue, because Bifrost is too important to Asgard. That is the most critical existence of Asgard. That is the transmission hub. Asgard people want to leave. They must go through Bifrost. If Bifrost is destroyed, it will be tantamount to completely blocking the retreat of the Asgardians. The father of God Odin would not fail to consider this question. If the father of God Odin would have evacuated the garrison on Bifrost without hesitation, then the father of God Odin would not be the father of God Odin, but the most stupid person in the world. Can't be king of Asgard at all. Looking at Malekith's suspicious eyes, Qin Yun couldn't help laughing. He understood that Keith still hadn't figured it out, so he went to find what the father of God Odin said. It seems that you still don't understand, but it's okay. Just listen. I told the father of God Odin about tomorrow's attack on Asgard. Qin Yun spoke very plainly, but these words aroused a very strong reaction from Malekith. Malekith blushed, looked at Qin Yun with wide eyes, and shook his head hastily. No, it's impossible. You want to kill all the giants of Jotunheim and Dark Elves. You tell the whole plan. What good will it do you? Could it be that you want to use the hands of Asgard soldiers to kill all the people and warriors of the giants of Jotunheim and the Dark Elf? Malekith couldn't believe it, and looked at Qin Yun in surprise. Before, he thought that it was impossible for Qin Yun to give all the opportunities to the father of God Odin. Unexpectedly, the next words would be slapped in the face by Malekith. The unexpected thing happened, but it happened. What I wanted to happen didn't happen. The lives of himself and the Dark Elves are all in Qin Yun's hands, and Malekith can't help but feel a sense of retreat in his heart. Qin Yun is really crazy. He wants to put everyone in dire straits. There is no retreat for the giants of Jotunheim and the Dark Elves. Now Qin Yun tells Malekith, and Malekith goes back and tells the Dark Elves that there is still a chance. The time to attack Asgard is 7 o'clock tomorrow night. There is still time. But, will Qin Yun give himself this chance? Malekith was caught in a dilemma for a while. He looked at Qin Yun in front of him, calm. For a while, I couldn't figure out what Qin Yun was thinking. Could it be that Qin Yun really wanted to kill all the people and soldiers of the giants of Jotunheim and the Dark Elf clan through such a method? He was a little unsure. He still had a feeling that he couldn't see through Qin Yun. I can only pray to Qin Yun in my heart, don't treat the Dark Elves as sacrifices. That would be a catastrophe for the entire Dark Elves. After all, his own life is firmly in Qin Yun's hands. If Qin Yun is unhappy alone, it is more than enough to kill yourself. In that contract, Malekith had no initiative at all, and the initiative was all in Qin Yun's hands. Malekith looked at Qin Yun carefully, only to see Qin Yun slowly shaking his head. No, you're totally wrong. I sold the giants of Jotunheim. I told him that the giants of Jotunheim will attack the left and right sides of Asgard tomorrow. After he learns the news, he will arrange it immediately. Qin Yun's words made Malekith's eyes light up, and his tense emotions immediately relaxed. Malekith nodded quickly and said, yes, this is the most correct way. So the giants of Jotunheim, we don't care about Lof's life. But can he believe it? As Malekith talked, he became suspicious again, thinking that the father of God Odin is not a fool. The relationship between Qin Yun and the father of God Odin is not as good as expected. In case the father of God Odin doesn't believe what Qin Yun said, isn't that still the same? Nothing has changed at all? Regarding the father of God Odin, Malekith felt that he knew the father of God Odin better than Qin Yun. After all, they had been at war 5,000 years ago, and during this time, Malekith also learned about the father of God Odin through many channels. Therefore, Malekith can assure himself that he knows more about the father of God Odin than Qin Yun. As everyone knows, Qin Yun is a person with God's perspective. His mentality and methods of playing with people are much better than Malekith's. Haha, you think too much. Don't you think I didn't think of what you thought? Why do I have the confidence to say these things to you? Because I'm 100% sure. I guarantee that Odin has already laid out the layout, so that all Asgard soldiers go to the left and right sides of Asgard to guard. Qin Yun said confidently. He has already moved out of Loki. Loki's message. The father of God Odin will definitely believe it. After all, they've lived with each other for so many years. Chapter 196 Qin Yun's greatness. Doesn't the father of God Odin know what kind of man Loki is? Obviously impossible. As long as Loki's name is mentioned, the father of God Odin will 100% believe what he said, and believe it. There is no doubt about it. With the understanding of the father of God Odin, Qin Yun played with the psychological state of the father of God Odin between applause, not exaggerating at all. Even if Qin Yun faces Malekith, even if Malekith takes the position of the father of God Odin, Malekith will still fall for it. Doubt is the biggest problem. It is not an easy thing for the father of God Odin to be in this position. Likewise, the longtime king of Asgard, the father of God Odin already had that feeling in his heart. Why did he take Loki back? It is to cultivate a person who can help his own son Thor in the future. However, although the father of God Odin thought so, how many years have passed? The father of God Odin found that this matter had deviated from the track, and things had completely deviated from what the father of God Odin had thought before. This troubles the father of God Odin. However, sometimes, in his position, many things cannot be made public. For a time, the father of God Odin had nothing to do with Loki. I can only turn a blind eye to Loki's actions, but turning a blind eye again and again makes Loki feel confident. Loki is getting more and more daring. From the beginning of the small fight, the father of God Odin thinks there is no problem, because Asgard's rule is very firm. Even if Loki is let go, it will have no effect on Asgard at all. However, as time went by, the father of God found out that Loki was going too far. Many things, he pretended to be perfect on the surface, but behind those things, in the final analysis, everything was caused by Loki. The father of God Odin looked at his son's feelings for Loki again. He was still as good as his brother, and he didn't find these things at all. This makes the father of God Odin very helpless. You can't let Loki deceive your own son, can you? Therefore, the father of God Odin often tells Thor what Loki has done, so that Thor realizes that Loki is not good. When getting along with each other, we must firmly remember that we cannot trust Loki 100%. However, when he got here, Thor couldn't understand the words of his own father, the father of God Odin. In his opinion, both himself and Loki are the biological sons of the father of God Odin, so why does the father of God Odin have completely different attitudes towards the two sons? This made Thor puzzled, and when the father of God Odin found out that Thor had clues in this regard, the father of God Odin had no way to say anything to Thor. The father of God Odin clearly knows that Thor is an emotional person. The love between him and Jane is so hot, and the relationship between him and his brother Loki is also quite deep. The father of God Odin knew that if Thor knew, Loki was not his own brother, but he the father of God Odin raised just for himself, Thor will be broken. The father of God Odin didn't dare to go on like this, so didn't say any more about Loki to Thor afterwards. He can only protect his son well behind Thor's back. Qin Yun clearly knows that the two brothers, Thor and Loki, have feelings for each other. Thor is very good to Loki. Although Loki has hatred for Thor, he also has brotherhood. However, after a series of actions now, Loki's hatred for Thor is greater than his brotherhood. In Loki's heart, it has become a knot, and this knot can never be completely untied. As the saying goes, the person who untied the bell had to tie it. However, Loki doesn't want to untie the bell, even if it goes all the way to the dark. Loki has to keep going. Hit the south wall and don't look back. Keep going, just to prove like Thor and the father of God Odin. I am the strongest and the most suitable to be the king of Asgard. He wants to slap the father of God Odin and Thor in the face thoroughly, and let them know who is stronger between him and Thor. His help to Asgard is greater than Thor. This kind of vengeance has gradually distorted Loki's heart again. Asking for flowers. However, Thor and the father of God Odin didn't even notice when Loki's mentality shifted bit by bit. Now the father of God Odin knows that these messages are all from Loki. Then the father of God Odin must take this matter to heart. In the past, small troubles did not have much impact on Asgard, and the father of God Odin didn't care too much about Loki's actions at all. But, it's different now. Loki has joined forces with the giants of Jotunheim to launch a war against Asgard. This matter cannot be ignored. If Asgard does not take any action, the giants of Jotunheim raiding the left and right sides of Asgard will cause extremely serious losses to Asgard. And after the light, the strength of the giants of Jotunheim is no longer what it used to be. The father of God Odin must take this matter seriously, and must go through this war to dispel the arrogance of the giants of Jotunheim. Dare to eye Asgard. Don't you even look at how many catties you have? Just want to touch Asgard. Doesn't Loaf think too highly of himself? Giants of Jotunheim. Back then the father of God Odin led the Asgard army and was able to defeat the giants of Jotunheim. This time is no exception. And the father of God Odin's heart is even more ruthless. He not only wants to dispel the arrogance of the giants of Jotunheim, but also has to drive all the giants of Jotunheim to extinction. Only by doing this can the future Thor be left intact. The father of God Odin knew the seriousness of the problem, and at the same time the father of God Odin was glad that he knew about this matter so early. If Asgard can make a response, it will naturally not ask King Yun why. That's why King Yun dared to be 100% sure of Malekith, because things had always happened according to his ideas. Can he not understand? Malekith was so surprised that he couldn't calm down for a long time. He looked at King Yun, and slowly stretched out his hand to give King Yun a thumbs up. He laughed loudly. King Yun, you are so amazing. Why didn't I think of this matter? Chapter 197 Future Opportunities. If you say that, I'm not afraid that Odin won't be fooled. Haha. It's really amazing. You have Odin's mind completely in your hands. Need to say the rest? Odin will surely take the bait. A smug smile appeared on Malekith's face, saying that Law thought he was attacking the left and right sides of Asgard before. It was a very right thing. As everyone knows, they are all sets arranged by King Yun for the giants of Jotunheim clan. As long as the giants of Jotunheim get in firmly, there will be no chance to come out again. There is no choice, since Lorf thinks that the giants of Jotunheim chose the left and right sides of Asgard is a very correct choice. He will not leave any retreat. He will go one way, and he will take all the giants of Jotunheim with him. Being able to attack Asgard's thinnest 790 weak point is something Lorf never dared to think about. But now it's done. If that's the case, then I'm relieved. Teach the giants of Jotunheim a lesson for the rest. Let them dare to take advantage of it in the future. No. There is no next time for them. A cruel smile appeared on Malekith's face. Want to send their dark elves over a fiery pit? It's so interesting. Fortunately, the dark elves didn't dive into the fire pit, but the giants of Jotunheim jumped in instead. If Lorf knew about the conversation between King Yun and Malekith, then Lorf might be pissed off. I feel that I have gained a huge advantage, but I don't know that these advantages are all made by King Yun and Malekith. If he knew the ins and outs of all these things, he would never have such an idea. He can't wait to choose Asgard's Bifrost immediately. As everyone knows, it's already too late. The big stone in Malekith's heart had been put down, and he looked at King Yun gratefully. Before, I thought that King Yun didn't care about him and the dark elves he led. However, King Yun did not expect King Yun to think so, and he still kept the dark elves and him firmly in his heart. Didn't let them suffer a bit. This made Malekith very grateful to King Yun. After all, how many years since their dark elves were defeated by Asgard led by the father of God Odin 5,000 years ago? Reduced to a street mouse, wandering in outer space. Malekith also visited his friends, but they were afraid to accept Malekith and the dark elves because of the majesty of the father of God Odin. What's more, in order to curry favor with the father of God Odin, some people attacked Malekith and the dark elves. It's fine if you don't help them, and you will deal a heavy blow to them. Keep them in constant danger. Fortunately, in the end, Malekith found a way to make the dark elves develop slowly, but this is slow. It is too slow. However, it is time to clear the clouds and see the light. Malekith will lead the Dark Elves to prove to all the countries in Kyushu that their Dark Elves will always be the top group of people in Kyushu. They want to firmly occupy Loki's piece of meat and potatoes in Asgard, so that others will be greedy and drool. You don't have to worry too much about the rest. When I wake up tomorrow morning, I'll go and tell the seat again. Odin is probably too upset to sleep now. I'll give him the heaviest blow to his heart tomorrow. King Yun chuckled, patted Malekith on the shoulder, and he let out a long sigh. I have played such a big game of chess, from the beginning to the present. I can finally come to an end. Also, No wonder you dared to promise Lorf that you would have one-on-one with the father of God Odin. This is also your confidence. I believe you can do it. At that time, even if you can't defeat the father of God Odin, the Dark Elves will help you. Soon, Asgard will be in our palms. As for the giants of Jotunheim, just kick them away. Even if the army of Asgard, there is no way to seriously damage the vitality of the giants of Jotunheim. Our Dark Elves will also complete the task very well, drive them all to death. Malekith said seriously. He felt that only the giants of Jotunheim could experience the baptism of the Asgard army. Even if not all of them died in battle, it was still at the limit. Then the Dark Elves led by him gave the giants of Jotunheim a final blow, making it impossible for the giants of Jotunheim to turn around, and even making the giants of Jotunheim disappear in this world. Thinking of this, Malekith laughed with satisfaction. Such a thing is rare in many years. In the country of Kyushu, the large file size does not count to decimals. If you want to completely destroy a country, it is not easy for a country. When you attack the opponent, other countries in Kyushu have already started to stare at you. When you win, they will see that your vitality is seriously injured, and they will send troops immediately, so that you don't have any time to breathe. When you fail, they will beat the dog in the water and take the opportunity to kill your country. Therefore, under the constraints of multiple forces, no country dares to act rashly. Except for Asgard. Asgard is really too powerful. Back then, the father of God Odin led the Asgard army, and basically stepped on every inch of the Kyushu kingdom. No one dares to stare at Asgard led by the father of God Odin. Definitely, they will also pay attention to the news of Asgard, as long as there is a day, waiting for the father of God Odin to die or when there is a major change in Asgard. They will act. Kill Asgard. When the father of God Odin was young and energetic, he provoked too many enemies. If it weren't for the fact that Asgard's soldiers were 0.2 strong and the horses were strong, and the father of God Odin's strength was strong, otherwise the city of Asgard would have been destroyed. They all fear the father of God Odin. Now even though the father of God Odin has fallen into old age, they are still afraid. As the saying goes, the shadow of the famous tree of people, the father of God Odin is still alive, which is the biggest bad news. The strength of the father of God Odin has already left a deep imprint in the hearts of other countries. No one dares lay their hands on Asgard. However, this time the giants of Jotunheim and the Dark Elves will lead the way to destroy Asgard. And the Dark Elves led by Malekith want to annex the giants of Jotunheim. They moved fast, with lightning speed. Chapter 198, Heavy Responsibility. When no one finds out, attack immediately. When they won the war, they raced against time to take a breather, in case other countries in Kyushu took action. At that time, if the Dark Elves led by Malekith want to firmly occupy Asgard, there is still a fierce battle to be fought. However, taking down Asgard first is also good news. Asgard is easy to defend but difficult to attack. If Kinyan didn't know too much about Asgard's weak points, otherwise Asgard would be extremely difficult to crack. However, these things are in the category of follow-up considerations, and Asgard will be taken down first. Let's talk about these other things. The rest has to be handed over to Kinyan, who has already established a tall image in Malekith's heart. In Malekith's view, Kinyan is omnipotent. Relying on his 3-inch tongue, he can make many things that are impossible but actually happen. Kinyan's game of chess is really good. In a big game of chess, there are 3 forces, the giants of Jotunheim led by Scifi, the Dark Elves led by Malekith, and Asgard of the father of God Odin. If one wrong step, it would be a land of eternal doom. But Kinyan did it. 21. Things happened step by step according to his ideas, without any error tolerance rate. Now Lorf's giants of Jotunheim clan, and the father of God Odin's Asgard, are all in Kinyan's calculations. Malekith had to sigh. What kind of mind Kinyan, a human being on Earth, thinks? He is stronger than a person who can calculate like him. Such a person is still one of his own. If Kinyan is the enemy, Malekith and the Dark Elves had no idea how many times they had been counted dead by Kinyan. Isn't the giants of Jotunheim led by Lorf a good proof? Lorf is still complacent, taking advantage of himself. Little did he know, both himself and the giants of Jotunheim clan had been counted countless times by Kinyan, waiting for the war to break out tomorrow. Lorf and the giants of Jotunheim died without knowing how. Thinking of this, Malekith couldn't help feeling a little terrified, but this feeling was fleeting. Kinyan will not count him. Malekith and the Dark Elves still have their strengths in front of Kinyan, so there is no need to worry about Kinyan abandoning his car to protect his handsomeness. That being the case, Malekith relaxed a lot. I really look forward to tomorrow's development. I'd like to see how Lorf feels. It's really interesting. Malekith laughed and said, he has got TIE particles now. It still takes some time to adjust your state, and then distribute part of the power of TIE particles to the Dark Elves. After many years of accumulation of TIE particles, if it weren't for Malekith's tricks, otherwise there would be no way to accept TIE particles. Fortunately, Malekith survived his life and successfully subdued the TIE particles. He felt the huge power of TIE particles, and he could absorb them all for his own use. However, at his level, there is not much room for improvement. He only needs a part of the energy of the TIE particles, and the rest can distribute the energy of the TIE particles, so as to make the Dark Elves stronger. For the Dark Elves, Malekith has taken great pains. As long as the strength of the entire Dark Elves can be improved, Malekith feels that there is hope for him to do more things. He is the leader of the Dark Elves, so he has to pay more for the Dark Elves. Malekith has no complaints at all. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. He really wants to see what stage he can help the Dark Elves improve step by step. Malekith is also quite looking forward to this process. Don't be too happy. No matter how happy things happen to you, you have to hold your breath. If you are so happy about this little thing, how can you take on heavy responsibilities in the future? Kinyan looked at Malekith with a look of resentment, watching Malekith complacent because of these little things. Then if I give Malekith a chance in the future, how can Malekith seize the opportunity? Kinyan sighed and shook his head. Hearing Kinyan's words, Malekith couldn't help being stunned. Letting Lorf and the giants of Jotunheim all die, is that a small thing? I still have greater opportunities in the future. Isn't it a big deal to get eye particles? Are these things insignificant in Kinyan's eyes? Malekith couldn't help being secretly surprised. He really couldn't believe it. He looked up at Kinyan and said with a smile, Lorf and the giants of Jotunheim, they die tomorrow. Our Dark Elves will usher in a better space for development. Isn't this a good thing? Malekith asked Kinyan, and Kinyan shook his head slowly. It's a good thing, but it's also a trivial good thing. Malekith, you have to take a longer view. You have to see more. Only by going further. Kinyan spoke earnestly to Malekith. He patted Malekith on the shoulder, and gave Malekith a meaningful look. From the eyes of 777 Kinyan, Malekith felt that he was as small as an ant in front of Kinyan. The things that I am happy about are completely ignored by Kinyan. Mal kissed and wondered for a while. Kinyan, a human on Earth, did have some tricks. However, the vision is too high. If nothing can catch his eyes, then what can surprise him? Looking at Malekith's eyes, Kinyan understood what Malekith was thinking, and he let out a long sigh. A chilling feeling emerged from his palm, and an ice blue box appeared on his palm. Here, Malekith. This is the powerhouse of the giants of Jotunheim, the box of ancient winter. As long as it is opened inside, there will be thousands of storms. You can take it with you tomorrow, and if the Dark Elves encounter any trouble, you can release it. Don't. It's more or less risky. Use it according to the situation. Kinyan spoke to Malekith earnestly, and Malekith was stunned, feeling the biting cold. He knew how important the Locket of Winter was to the giants of Jotunheim. While negotiating before, Lorf wanted to ask Kinyan for the box of ancient winter. Chapter 199, The World Far Away. Kinyan didn't even give it to Lorf, but gave him Malekith instead. This flattered Malekith, and he didn't know what to do for a while, whether to accept it or not. What are you doing in a daze? To you is to you. You taking it away will also help the Dark Elves a lot. After all, you are my subordinate now, and the Dark Elves are also my subordinates. I can't treat you badly. In the future, there are still many things to entrust to you. Even Asgard might be in your hands. Think of the treasury of the father of God Odin, Kinyan said with a faint smile. Kinyan didn't feel anything about these words, but Malekith was immersed in these words. As for the treasure house of the father of God Odin, he knows that it contains all kinds of treasures from the Kyushu kingdom. What can be seen by the father of God Odin is enough to prove the gold content of the treasures in the father of God Odin's treasury. Those are not ordinary treasures. Only good enough treasures can become a part of the treasure house of the father of God Odin. Some things that are regarded as treasures by the Kyushu kingdom, but in the eyes of the father of God Odin are rubbish at all. With such a vision, the treasures in the father of God Odin's treasury can be said to be worth thousands of gold. There are even some small kingdoms in Kyushu who want to try to sneak into Asgard and steal the treasures in the treasure house of the father of God Odin. However, no one succeeded, and all ended in failure. It is enough to prove the importance of the treasure house of the father of God Odin, and the guards around the treasure house of the father of God Odin are all the elite of Asgard's elite. Those who want to steal the items in the treasure house of the father of God Odin are all small men. There is no threat at all. However, later there was a well-known thief in Kyushu who wanted to steal the treasures in the treasure house of the father of God Odin, to prove himself. However, he still fell at the door of the father of God Odin's treasure house. He was killed just as he was about to open the door of the father of God Odin's treasury. After this incident got out, no one in Kyushu's big country or the small country dared to take the idea of the father of God Odin's treasure house anymore. If you think about the father of God Odin again, you're courting death. The father of God Odin is also happy that someone can keep an eye on his treasure house, which proves that his treasure house still has a great attraction history. At the same time, killing these people who want to steal things can also establish a reputation. Although the reputation of the father of God Odin has spread far and wide, under such circumstances, who doesn't like to add a title to their own name? The father of God Odin also uttered harsh words about this. As long as someone can steal the treasures in his treasury, he sent him off to Asgard intact. But, if you didn't steal something from the treasury, then I'm sorry, you can only die. When such news spread, Kyushu, a country with a large file size and a small file size, and people who were not afraid of death, tried to steal the treasure house of the father of God Odin. However, the result was still very miserable. None of the thieves ended up well. and all of them died in the process of stealing the father of God Odin. Without any exception, for thousands of years, only Kinyan was the treasure in the treasury gifted by the father of God Odin above board. Otherwise, no one will really be able to obtain the treasure in the treasure house of the father of God Odin. At the moment what Kinyan said made Malekith very excited. The treasures in the father of God Odin's treasury are all good things. At that time, looting the treasure house of the father of God Odin and bringing it to the Dark Elves will be a very good improvement for the Dark Elves. Malekith's mood improved a lot when he thought of this. Suddenly, Malekith thought about it again. He raised his head and looked at Kinyan, and couldn't help asking in wonder, "Kinyan, don't you have any ideas about the treasure house of the father of God Odin? It's full of treasures from Kyushu." Many people are salivating over the treasure house of the father of God Odin. Malekith is not lying. It is a fact. The gold content in the father of God Odin's treasury is too high. As long as there is an opportunity to get the treasure in the treasure house of the father of God Odin, no one will give up such an opportunity. However, Kinyan just smiled. Kinyan waved his hand slowly and said with a smile, "Unnecessary. I still don't like the things in the treasure house of the father of God Odin. Take it to improve your strength, and then improve the strength of the Dark Elves." Kinyan's words were uneven, but they stirred up waves in Malekith's heart. Malekith looked at Kinyan wonderingly. As a human being on Earth, Kinyan didn't have any idea about the treasure house of the father of God Odin. This must be too loud. I don't know how many people are salivating over the treasure house of the father of God Odin, but Kinyan is not flat about the treasure house of the father of God Odin. This made him very puzzled. Did Kinyan see more treasures? That's why he didn't have any idea about the treasures in the father of God Odin's treasury. But after thinking about it, there are only so many resources on the earth. Kinyan can go this far. You must have seen a lot of resources on earth, right? Can't it be seen that the resources on the earth are not at the same level as compared with other countries in Kyushu? If all the treasuries of the father of God Odin are brought back to earth, Malekith would probably laugh from ear to ear. Not to mention, no one will have any thoughts about the baby. Malekith clicked his tongue twice and shook his head. Impossible. Everything in the treasury of the father of God Odin is good stuff. You've seen the treasure in the father of God Odin's treasury, okay? Don't you really have no idea at all? Malekith raised a question, and Kinyan immediately burst out laughing, then shook his head. No. I have seen the things in the treasure house of the father of God Odin are true. But, who said I have thoughts about his baby? I got the box of ancient winter from the treasure house of the father of God Odin before, and it was only for the Lorphan giants of Jotunheim clan. As for the treasures inside, I really don't like any of them. Kinyan has already seen something better than the treasure house of the father of God Odin. Are the things in the treasure house of the father of God Odin better than infinite gems? Obviously not. What's more, Kinyan has seen better things than infinite gems. The treasures in the father of God Odin's treasury can't even match the value of infinite gems, let alone better treasures than infinite gems. Chapter 200 The Road to Proof. In Kinyan's eyes, the treasure house of the father of God Odin is full of rubbish. He took out the ancient winter box from the father of God Odin's treasury, and it had other uses entirely. Besides, he really doesn't have any interest in the treasure house of the father of God Odin. He knew others had thoughts about the father of God Odin's vault, and it was because they hadn't seen anything better. I always feel that the treasure house of the father of God Odin is the best treasure in Kyushu, but for Kinyan, that is not the case. Kinyan continued to speak slowly. You should never look at me with your perception. You just know, it's fine if I don't like it. It's all for you when the time comes. Malekith laughed for a while. If that's the case, that's good. Kinyan has no interest in the treasure house of the father of God Odin, so let him get all the treasures inside. At that time, the improvement of the Dark Elves will be a big part. Looking at Malekith's eyes, Kinyan knew what Malekith was thinking. However, he didn't say much. After all, he saw far more worlds than Malekith. If he told Malekith more things, Malekith would not believe so much. Why not just let that Malekith experience it slowly and slowly see the farther world? Okay, don't talk so much. You take the box of ancient winter away. At 7 o'clock tomorrow night, you must remember. Don't live up to my expectations of you. I have done so many things just to pave the way for you and the Dark Elves. Don't wait. You haven't done anything. Let Lorf succeed with the giants of Jotunheim instead, and you'll all die. Kinyan said coldly, and Malekith couldn't help but shiver. However, he understood the importance of attacking Asgard in his heart. If you can't even do this little thing, then he might as well bring all the Dark Elves to die. Moreover, Kinyan has already laid the groundwork for this, allowing Lorf to lead the giants of Jotunheim to victory. Then completely underestimate them. Don't fight for steamed buns, but also have to fight for breath. Malekith still feels a lot of pressure on his body, but the greater the pressure, the more potential he can arouse. Malekith is going to lead the Dark Elves to a broad road. Let all the people who have made trouble against the Dark Elves before, all severely slapped in the face, and tell them that the strongest clan in Kyushu is the Dark Elves. At that time, there will be no doubts from anyone. Malekith is going to do this. He wants to make the Dark Elves ascend to the sky in one step. This is also his responsibility. He doesn't have to be ashamed of everyone in the Dark Elves. Malekith's love for the Dark Elves is very deep, They are all his own people. After they failed to provoke the war with Asgard, the Dark Elves didn't have any complaints. Together with him in the outer space universe, wandering for 5,000 years. That is not a few days and months, but thousands of years. How can Malekith not pay attention to such feelings? One cannot forget one's origins, and Malekith knows this truth well. He is the leader of the Dark Elves, and every step he takes is responsible for the Dark Elves, and there must be no mistakes. Malekith promises that he must do it. It will definitely make the Dark Elves climb to the top level step by step. Before, Malekith was still not confident about his ability. Although his strength is also strong, it is not a situation where ability can turn the tide by himself. You must get it. The right time, the right place and the right people. Now, Malekith has gained peace among the Dark Elves, and this is just the beginning. Harmony with people is actually the simplest of the right time and place, but it is more difficult to achieve the right time and place. Now, a great opportunity appeared in front of Malekith. The once-in-5,000-year celestial body aggregation is about to begin, and this time it is done. The location is in Asgard. As long as you get Asgard, you get the land. With the right time, place and people, everything can be done tomorrow. This matter was something that Malekith had never dared to think about before, a scene that would only appear in his dreams many times. But tomorrow it will really happen to him. Malekith sighed and smiled. He could do it. How many years have passed, and countless generations of leaders of the previous Dark Elves have not achieved this step, and they have come to this stage. Now, with the Dark Elves in his hands, he can finally take a brave step forward, and this step is still a big step. Take big steps and steady steps. What a great opportunity presented in front of Malekith. Malekith must firmly grasp this opportunity, and will never let this opportunity slip away from his palm. Malekith promises that he will be able to do this. And all this is entirely due to the person in front of me, that is Qin Yun. Qin Yun gave Malekith a great fortune, and also gave the Dark Elves a great opportunity. Malekith will never miss this opportunity, nor will he let the cooked duck fly away from his palm. He put the ancient winter box back, showing a sinister smile. The box of ancient winter can play a vital role at critical times. Malekith began to pray for the soldiers of Asgard, and the army of giants of Jotunheim. If they see the box of ancient winter in their hands and release the power, they will all die. What kind of scene will they be in? You must know that the box of ancient winter is the source of power for the giants of Jotunheim, and the giants of Jotunheim themselves were killed by the source of power in their own clan. What would the giants of Jotunheim think? Killing is even more heart-wrenching. Malekith smiled and saluted Qin Yun respectfully. I thank you for your gift again for the Dark Elves. After tomorrow, I believe that the box of ancient winter will still unleash its due power. Let those enemies feel the feeling of death again. They will regret against us in this life, and they can only repent in the next life. Malekith laughed triumphantly while talking. He really didn't know how to express his feeling now. This is a feeling he has never experienced in 5,000 years. The Dark Elves he led before were like rats crossing the street. No one would pay attention to them. No one will choose to help them. What the Dark Elves get is abuse and killing. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this and join my Patreon if you want to support me. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.